Welcome back to California Speedway. I'm Paul Page. We're ready for the 500, presented by Toyota, the final race in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. With the Indy lights complete, already they have the champ cars on the starting grid, ready to go. It's made for a very interesting day thus far, and I think it's only the beginning. Drivers in the cockpits, they'll start the engine shortly, and 500 miles are left. Well, Sunday night, Ricky Williams and the New Orleans Saints host Curtis Martin and the New York Jets, two of the best running backs in the game, going head-to-head. Sunday Night Football, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. Mike Patrick, Paul McGuire, Joe Theismann, they have the call. Coverage begins with NFL Primetime, presented by Miller Lite at 7:30 Eastern. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Well, there's a bright orange monster over the track today. The Monster.com blimp, providing us with great views of the action to come. Monster.com. Jobs good, life good. Well, only now just a few moments away for the start of the engines, final race of the season. Drivers already strapped into the cockpit, wondering what lies ahead in the 500 miles. Alex Tagliani, of course, the pole sitter, the third pole of his career, but he has yet to notch a victory in the series. Kenny Breck, who has been so spectacular, but less so on ovals this season, already has clinched second in the championships. And alongside, Parker Johnstone joins me, Gary Gerald, Jan Bikas with their coverage from the pits as they make a dash for the pit area. We hope they get there before the start of the race. Here is the starting grid. It's Ford and Toyota on the front row. Tagliani and D'Amata. Looking down through the field, Parker.
Jourdain Jr., excellent performance down in 7th place, but for a number of drivers, Paul, they never focused on qualifying, only the race setup itself. Mimo Gidley, Jimmy Vasser, Brian Herta, all guys that said, hey, we don't care about qualifying. Alex Tagliani told me yesterday he'd be surprised if he led this race going into the third corner. Patrick Carpentier won the last race at Michigan, his first in kart. He's making bookends for players. He's in the back, but he said, hey, I've got a great car. I'll be at the front in no time.
Carpentier, one of the last drivers to climb in the car. There's our latest winner in the series, Cristiano D'Amata, as he anticipates his start from the front row with 500 miles ahead. The place is California Speedway, Fontana, California. The race is the 500, presented by Toyota. We're about 50 miles to the east of downtown Los Angeles. A beautiful facility, probably one of the few facilities in the world that could have this happen this quick after another race. The Indy lights are finished, and now here comes the roar of the engines for the champ cars. The Kart FedEx Championship Series is ready to run the final race of their season. Jill DeFerrin is the 2001 Kart champion and has nothing to lose today as he seeks his third win of the year and his first 500-miler. Well, in the ordinary world, you would think, okay, I've got the $1 million, I got the championship, let's just, kind of take it easy for the day. I don't think that's going to happen because there's $1 million on the line for the winner here today. Parker Johnstone, what do you think we're going to see?
We're going to see nonstop action from front to back. We've seen record lead changes in the past at the stripe, but there are changes all around the racetrack. But this is a crapshoot. The guys have to be careful. This place is notoriously bad on engines and gearboxes. They'll have to be a little conservative for the beginning of the race, but conservative isn't a word you find in most racers' vocabularies. It is the last race of the year. There is $1 million at stake, and I tell you, Paul, there's no better race to win than the last one. A lot of these guys looking for a ride for next season. This is the race you want to win.
And at least we forget Jill DeFerrin is really on a hot streak when you consider the first 15 races of the year and then the last 4. 71 points he scored in a mere 4 races, and of course that helped him take that championship. There's a couple other things to think about here today as they begin to roll out, and that is attrition. Last year, there were only 6 cars running at the finish of this race. It tends to pull very hard on engines. We're talking a groove that is only about a lane and a half wide for these cars. And look at that, coming out of the 2000 California 500.
Look at the bottom. We've already lost 10 engines this weekend, but the drivers know that. It's going to be difficult for anybody to remain on point at the lead. The guys behind are going to be breathing the throttles, but still, this is going to turn into a very strategic race with a good old-fashioned Saturday night sprint at the end.
And there is way too much money on the line as they get the final salute from this season for anyone to relax. When we come back, it should be a green flag in the 500 presented by Toyota. Back at the California Speedway, very hazy day, as you can see, especially on the long shots. Ready for the start of the 500 presented by Toyota. Alex Barron pulled onto the pit road, and they are still working on his car as the field now begins to assemble, looking to a start of the pace lap. There's Barron's car.
And we've got 2 drivers in backup cars, Kenny Breck and Michel Jourdain Jr. It's been an unusual week, Paul. They came from Surfers Paradise. The crews only had 1 day to turn these cars around from street fighters into oval racers. That means a complete rebuild of every single part on the car. And now these teams have only had 1 hour to get these cars ready from the hastened warm-up for this race. And on a day where everything's been delayed, a lot of drivers get into a routine with what they eat, what they drink, how they mentally prepare. The last thing you want at the last moment is then to have to go into a backup car.
Yeah, consider the pressure on not just the drivers, but all of the teams. A 14 time zone change as they come back to race the final race in California. A little over 2 miles around here, the exact measurement, 250 laps. The scheduled distance, 500 miles. Gary Gerald?
Well, Paul, Parker was talking about the stress that these crews have been under, not only with the short turnaround from Australia this week, but then the very quick turnaround from that warm-up session. We've seen Alex Barron's team out there thrashing. I think it's going to be very interesting on the first pit stop today to see what teams have settled into their normal rhythm and how well they execute. Of course, they'll get multiple opportunities to do that in the course of a 500-mile race, but whether or not this compressed schedule will have any impact on their performance may be an early key as to who gets success in this event. Jan Beekes?
Hey, Gary, we've already talked about the fact that Kenny Breck is out there in a spare car because of an oil leak. Well, consider we talk about Kenny Breck being the oval master. But remember, he has never won a 500-mile race in kart. He's won the Indy 500, but never won here in kart. And since this is his final ride for Team Rahal, what a great way for Kenny Breck to say goodbye and off to the Ganassi team. Paul?
Well, there, in fact, he is, Kenny Breck. Alex Barron got Rawlings rushing now to join the back of the field. They're over on the backstretch. And it will be the green flag, all things considered, when they come around. Already the pace car is off of the course. Acceleration begins. Tagliani, the pole sitter. D'Amata alongside of him. Nice formation, front 2 rows, then some stragglers. Now row 3 comes in. Green flag. The final race of the season is underway. Tagliani leads him into turn 1. Brett comes up to challenge on the inside, but D'Amata goes around on the outside.
Tag said he didn't think he'd lead by turn 3. Heck, it was even halfway through turn 2 before Cristiano D'Amata got around the high side.
And that's Brian Herta that goes with D'Amata and goes into second place. And now Herta goes for the lead. Herta looks like he might lead the first lap.
You've got to be thinking already right at the beginning, though, this isn't the lap that you want to lead. You've got to have a great deal of restraint, a great deal of patience, and now Cristiano D'Amata making a move.
Cristiano D'Amata comes back, takes the lead going into turn 1. He had the lead here at last lap. Herta was able to overhaul him on the backstretch. Alex Tagliani sits back there in third. You got a glimpse of Christian Fittipaldi in fourth. And there goes Herta.
And the team managers know that they've got to tell these guys to be careful early. But being race drivers, they're going to let them have a few laps to try to get the adrenaline toned down a little bit before they settle into a groove, start hitting their target numbers for their fuel mileage, and also just find a nice groove to run these cars in.
Oh, shades of the Great Michigan 500 as D'Amata comes back around. No changes at the line, but every corner it seems like someone is ready to charge on someone else. Look, too, just behind Tagliani, Max Pappas has moved up. Michael Andretti coming up through the field as well. He started well back, and now he comes up right behind Christian Fittipaldi. They're the guys that are making moves. Great move for Franchitti, and superb moves for both Tracy and Andretti. Of course, Tracy, he always says, I'm going to the front.
And as I said, a lot of these drivers, a lot of these teams didn't put a lot of emphasis on qualifying simply because the draft is overwhelming here at California Speedway. You've got to set the car up to run in traffic. You use your pit stops to fine-tune the car for this changing track condition. It rained overnight. This is a different track than they tested on and practiced on earlier in the week. And so therefore, as long as they've got the right gears, as long as they've got the right combination, you fine-tune it for that sprint at the end.
At the front of the field, Herta D'Amata, Tagliani, and then Pappas, Jan Pikus.
Parker was just mentioning having the right gear. I can tell you that as these cars go down into turn number 1, I've never heard so many rev emitters. This is the first time they've been able to run in this close proximity. These cars are flying in the draft. Some people have the right top gear, other people do not.
For the Lola teams, they have 7-speed gearboxes. It's an option on the Renards. Not all the teams are running 7-speed gearboxes, and you need 3, even 4 gears to be able to choose from with this sort of drafting action.
And here comes Max Pappas going into 1. He overhauls Cristiano D'Amata. And can he hold on for the lead, though? Down the backstretch. I'll tell you what, there have been some massive charges from the back of the field, not the least of which is Paul Tracy, who's carved his way to the front and is now chasing the leader.
And very important for Paul Tracy, he's only one of 2 drivers in this series on a regular basis that has not led 1 lap this year. Remember, he came into this race last year contending for the championship. This year he's found himself way back in the points and has not led 1 lap. This could be the lap, maybe not.
Battling for the lead back and forth, Pappas, Tracy, 9. Now 10 lead changes unofficially in this run in only 7 laps of the 250. Whereas Tracy is very serious about this race. Winless this season, looking for that win. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, it's interesting as you've watched that charge by Paul Tracy. John Anderson on the radio told him to go for the fuel mileage and to sit behind someone. That's going against the grain for Paul Tracy. He's got a $1 million incentive, as do all of these drivers on the field here. And he's got something special going as he battles Pappas and pulls almost alongside.
That's what I talked about right from the beginning. You can't do this. You can't show all your cards at the beginning, use up everything you've got in the car so early. The guys will be on the radio saying, come on, you got to back off. You got to fall in line. And for drivers like Vassar, Herta, Ghibli, some of the others, they have enough experience and patience to lay back in this field. Paul Tracy, he wants to lead a lap.
Taking advantage back and forth of the draft, you're back with Gidley at 8th place.
And you can hear him lift there, Paul. Had a nice breathe at the engine. He knows that he's got to get to the last lap, so he's being very careful here. He could have drafted right by the car in front of him, but he chose not to do so.
Drafting here is, in fact, right now showing to be even more important than we anticipated. Joining us for the coverage is Scott Pruitt, who certainly knows how to run in the draft, and especially here. Scott, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here. Now, the thing you got to remember, these guys are all starting with more downforce than what they plan on running at the end of the race. This is to give them a better car, more conservative car for what they're doing right now, this wheel-to-wheel racing. They're going to have a better balance. They're going to have a better feel for the car. As the race unfolds, they're going to start trimming these cars out. They're looking for the opportunity right now to get a feel what they can do and what they can't do. So we'll see some changing in aero balance throughout this race.
Officially, Herta, Pappas, D'Amata are the only ones scored as leading the race. You can see D'Amata, as he came around, pulled well out. But again, it continues to seesaw back in the field. And now both Franchitti and Tracy are up in the front, chasing Pappas in second.
You want rush hour traffic in Southern California? You've found it. And for Cristiano D'Amata, he's now won on a permanent road course with the season opener at Monterey. He won in Chicago last year on a short oval. He won in the streets of Australia last week. He's looking now to put the final jewel in one of the most diverse series that you can possibly have anywhere. If he can win on a super speedway, then he's done it all.
Of course, the $1 million is important for this race as Gidley tries to make a move. But perhaps even more important, we have the longest list I think I remember ever of drivers who are not committed for next season. So it's $1 million and a chance to show off and hopefully a chance to make a career. And Elio Castroneves comes up to try and battle first with Tracy, which is pretty short-lived, and it's now ready to go for the lead as well. Castroneves started 24th, so what those guys were saying about it doesn't matter where you start here certainly seems to be accurate. We just didn't know it was going to be accurate this early.
You watch Castroneves, you talk about the commitment to win, to succeed. Team Penske came here with their highly modified Penske Renard chassis as well as the standard Renard chassis. They were disappointed in their performance earlier at Michigan this year. And even though Gilles de Ferran set the closed course world speed record last year here at 241.4 miles an hour, they've had problems this year. So they brought both chassis, each driver, and each time.
Add Castroneves to the list of leaders already by the backstretch. It has changed. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Paul, it's interesting from our standpoint. Remember yesterday in qualifying how the Honda team struggled one car by themselves on the racetrack, and all of their starters, I think, were from 11th or 12th back deep in the field. And yet here's Tracy, here's Castroneves, here's Michael Andretti, all up here in this huge gaggle going into turn one.
They come off a 4-3 wide. Pappas has joined them up at the front again. Gidley is still keeping in the fight. And look at Tony Kanaan driving for Morris Dunn Racing. He's up in the battle too.
And Gary, I think everybody was shocked, although a lot of teams didn't put an emphasis on qualifying. I think everybody was surprised to see that Shinji Nakano was the highest Honda qualifier in 12th. But Paul, I think now it's taken 14, 15 laps for everybody to settle down, get in a groove. You can see a lot of people, maybe not Tony Kanaan, are willing to run in line. The intensity has backed off just a little bit as they're now about halfway through this fuel run. They're starting to get a feel for how these chassis are working.
The winner of the Michigan 500, Patrick Carpentier, started in the last row, is running last. Jan Biggis, what's going on here?
Unfortunately, bad news, Paul. It turns out they're having boost control problems. They do not have power. They can't get the boost up. Nothing he can do in the car. They don't know if it's a pop-off valve or something in the boost control system. Nothing he can do but ride around, and maybe they could do something in the pits under yellow to try and fix it.
You know, overall, with the way the engines went last year, and in fact this weekend, that may work to his advantage before it's over.
I was talking to Bruce Ashmore, the technical director for Players Racing, and he said, yeah, we've had a pretty bad weekend for Patrick so far, but it's just like Michigan. He's taken 2 checkered flags during a practice session and got talked to. He's had an engine go bad, which they had. They had to change gearboxes with their 7-speed to the backup car. He said, and we're at the back of the field, so it's just like Michigan, and hey, we won there, but it doesn't look like things are going quite so well for them this weekend.
Now, just so you understand, this is not the 405 freeway. This is Fontana, California Speedway, and the Kart FedEx Championship Series. They have been running nose to tail now for 20 laps. At the moment, and only for a few seconds it appears, Elio Castroneves is the leader. Tony Kanaan right behind him. Paul Tracy there. It has been a tight battle in front of a great crowd right from the green flag.
And as we look back, sort of the pack that's Franchitti, D'Amato now, de Ferran, Breck, Andretti, Vassar, even Tagliani, I think these guys are comfortable just to sit here. Listen how early Cristiano backed out of the throttle and continues to back out on corner entry. So he's found a nice place to run. The only thing you don't want to do is lose contact with the lead group, because it would be just absolutely devastating to go a lap down. You can get it back. You just want to keep contact, though, with this lead group. It'd be very, very easy on the engine. You notice he's not shifting. He's not putting any strain on the gearbox. He's found a nice placeable place in which to run, a nice pace to run.
Go back up to the front of the field. 20 unofficial lead changes. Gidley is the leader of the race. Before the 500 miles is run, this will be a race of strategy. And Scott Pruitt, how do you think that game plays?
Well, right now, that's the whole name of the game. These guys are still trying to figure it out. As they ran Michigan and they come into Fontana here, they're trying to feel their cars out. The biggest thing these drivers are doing, even though it looks hectic and pretty crazy, everybody's being very conservative. This is the start of the race. They don't need to do anything stupid. They got to get their car to the end. They got to take care of the engine. The Lolas have a little bit of advantage where they have a 7-speed gearbox. Biggest thing they're doing right now is getting a feel for the car, but being very careful.
You saw Cristiano reach down there in the onboard camera. Of course, when you're running in the draft, everything about your engine matters, including you got a full bit with the gearing.
Well, that's the difference between listening to Gidley's engine. Listen how much throttle he carries through the corner now. Nearly flat out all the way around. He's just punching a hole for everyone else. He's being the rabbit, and I can guarantee you right behind him, Cristiano Damata, listen to his engine now. He backs way off here, lets the engine breathe. So if you look at the stress that Gidley's putting on his Toyota engine versus what Damata's doing with his engine, Cristiano playing a much smarter race now.
Elio Castroneves working the high groove, goes back to the lead, and we'll show you who's driving with what power plant behind them. And we'll go down, keeping us up to date on engines, Jan Beacon.
And I think that, Parker, you have brought up something very important, and that is the stress on the engines that the drivers put it through. It is simply known as the duty cycle here with the engine managements. And what these teams are talking about, they run them on dynos, and any time that you can lift off the throttle and cool the engine, just like we were talking about for Cristiano Damata, it makes a huge difference in that duty cycle. So if they can continue to do that, that is what keeps an engine underneath the driver.
If you don't pay attention to that, you'll have nothing but duty behind you. That's why it's very important. As Jan said, they measure RPMs versus time, and it's like putting revs in the bank. And you can save them for the end, start using the overtake button. And Scott can tell you, because Scott, when you and I race together, we drop back 4th, 5th, 6th, and just stay there so we could use it at the end if we had it.
We're watching Kenny Breck because there was an observer report that there might be a fire on this car. I don't see it if there is, but of course they're sitting right on top of the course, and we're watching like you, except you probably have a 900-inch screen, and we have one that's 13. So if you see it, give us a call.
There you go.
27 laps of the 250 complete. The 500 presented by Toyota. Castroneves, as he crosses the line, gets another lap in the lead. Right behind him, Cristiano Damata, and then Tony Kanaan. That will change. Presented by Toyota on ESPN Speed World. And today it's brought to you by Toyota. Get the feeling. And in part by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series. Monday Night Countdown previews ABC's Monday Night Football, as well as provides up-to-the-minute NFL news, comprehensive analysis, and live interviews. So start your Monday night with Monday Night Countdown on ESPN. We mentioned Kenny Breck. You saw him slide by over there on the onboard camera shot in turn 1, brush the wall, slides it down. And pretty severe damage to that car. We had no further report of a fire.
Got loose spun.
Bobby Rahal, of course, with his back to us, looking the same shots that you're looking at right now. The team owner, along with Dave Letterman on Kenny Breck's team. Simple Green safety team is right there. Quite a bit of oil up on the track.
Remember, he had the engine problem on Friday coming out of turn 4. Had heavy contact in his primary car with the outside wall. This falls right into the pit window. Everybody's laying out now for the first round of pit stops. So as soon as they open up the pit lane, we'll see all the teams coming in.
Look at all the other guys. Whoa, I needed a break.
Yeah, catch your breath here.
We're going to look on Scott Dixon's car.
Now look up ahead through the banking. You'll see the puff of smoke. Scott Dixon back in 18th place in the number 18 car as he enters turn 1. Look to the top of the screen. You can see the car get away from the back of the car, get away from Kenny Breck. So here we are in the entry. You want to look up ahead right there. Keep your eye focused. Look high. You see the smoke? Kenny Breck up into the wall.
Another
to the left of your screen, you can see right here Kenny Breck already backwards. If you're going to hit, that's a pretty good way to hit. Back of the car taking most of the impact, just a small slap with the front of the car.
So his hope of 500-mile oval win in the Kart FedEx Championship Series, they are now dashed. Kenny Breck is out of the car. And it appeared, as he climbed out, that he was okay. We'll wait for some sort of official report on that, but it appears that Kenny's just fine. Down in Kenny Breck's pits, let's go to Jan Beekes.
With Scott Remke. Now, there was a report that there could have been a possible fire for Kenny Breck's car. Was that a contributing factor, do you think?
I don't think so. We couldn't confirm that. Then the report came back that they didn't know which car might have had the fire. Car was a little neutral, and he just said it jumped away from him in the turbulence. So, you know, we had a pretty good year here with Kenny and Shell, and just hated to end it this way.
So you're on your way now here to Max Pappas's pit to lend a hand as well?
Yeah, I'm going to go down and check on Kenny. We talked to him on the radio. We'll go to the medical center, get him, and then we'll come get Max up there in the points.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
And when he does that, he'll be going to the pit of the current leader, Max Pappas, under the first yellow of the day, has assumed the lead of the race ahead of Castroneves, Franchitti, D'Amata, and Paul Tracy.
Kenny Breck and Team Rahal has been dominant this year. They've had 11 top 3 starts. Kenny Breck, by far the most laps led. Everything but that elusive championship has been his this year. Second in the championship, locked down, guaranteed $500,000 for that honor. Last year's Rookie of the Year, former Indy 500 winner. Not the way he wanted to end his stint with Team Rahal.
And, of course, this incident comes at just a perfect place for everybody to head into the pits. They were probably on their way within a lap or two anyway. Now behind the pace car, the pit should come open, and it will be Max Pappas that leads this field in. Track position is going to be pretty critical coming out as well. Watching for Max Pappas to make the turn down. There's the entrance to the pits coming. And everybody comes in. Let's see who may stay out as Max Pappas brings the field down. That was interesting.
Well, you don't have to be at 50 until you get to the line. Castroneves accelerated, got just a little bit of an advantage as they hit that speed limit line.
Let's go to Jan.
But for Max Pappas, because of his pit selection, he will be the first car to get service down here. Routine so far, a 1.5 turn adjustment. 11.5, let's get to Gary.
Watching Castroneves get his service, no changes on the car, so it wasn't loose. He liked it where he was running it. 11.7, I actually had a little quicker in my clock, but Pappas did beat him out.
In fact, Max Pappas will lead the field out of the pits. Castroneves coming in behind him. Everyone except for one single car stopped. And that stop was made on the 34th lap.
And Paul, the reason the stops were as quick as they were, these tanks are full of fuel. They fuel a little bit faster for that first stop.
And a little more head pressure, gravity pushing the fuel down through the hose because there's more fuel in the pit tank. It gets longer as the day goes on. So Max Pappas wins the battle in the pits, though Helio Castroneves got a nose just ahead of him as they decelerated. We'll be back.
Schultz never knew there were tunnels.
He didn't want to know, but you're missing the point of the story.
A young entrepreneur engrossed in...
Spotlight takes a look at Kenny Breck. Too much of a familiarity with the walls. Remember Michigan? Bounced off his teammate, backed into the wall. And then here, California Speedway, Friday, blown engine. Same end result, sliding down the wall backwards. Severe damage to the car. And then just a few moments ago, off of turn 2, quick spin against the wall. His day is done. Preliminary report is that there is no injury whatsoever with Kenny Breck. We will wait for the official word as well. There's the pit summary, Parker.
Looking Fernandez, the big loser. Tagliani won. Dixon and Mears. The thing that we talked about a little earlier was Castroneves came in just a little bit ahead of Pappas, but Pappas brilliant on the way into the box and the way out of the box at about 2 car lengths as they exited the pit lane. Great work from the Team Rahal crew.
Assuming that Max Pappas actually learned something with that, because braking at the last second for that line could be very meaningful before this day is over.
Some places have silly ideas to bring you in. But once you get to the taste, where's the fresh? Want something made fresh? Try one of the new Subway Selects.
We've got 4 new Subway Selects, like the delicious horseradish steak and cheese.
Next weekend, the NHRA closes out its 2001 season. Just down the road in Pomona, California, Kenny Bernstein and Larry Dixon will continue their battle for the Top Fuel title. Finals on ESPN2 Sunday evening at 7 Eastern. Monster.com blimps covering today's race, 130 feet long, 40 feet tall, and when empty, it weighs a bit over 2,700 pounds. Monster.com reminds you to think big when it comes to your career and your life. Back at the California Speedway, the 500 presented by Toyota. Still pretty hazy conditions down on the track, but sunshine for the moment. It rained earlier today, and that delayed everything. We finally got the race underway after a very late warm-up, and quite a bit of oil on the track after Kenny Breck got the wall, and here's how it happened.
Back in got away from him, 180-degree rotation, slides up against the wall and down the wall, and that happens very, very fast.
Update on Kenny Breck. Here's Jan Bikas.
Just spoke with Scott Remke one more time, who just left the medical center and said that Kenny is A-OK. They are going to ice him down and keep him in the medical center for some time. They hope to bring him out to pit road, and maybe we can speak with him later on.
They're going to ice all of him down?
Well, the affected parts.
Affected
Well,
areas,
consider where he's from.
Yeah, you won't even know it's cold.
Exactly.
So there's the field summary as we're under a fairly lengthy cleanup here. You run these kind of speeds, you don't want to take any chance at all with even the slightest bit of oil on the track. And of course, when he got the wall, quite a bit of oil came off of that race car and ran down across the track, including water and some other fluids. We'll be back at California after this.
Somewhere out there.
About strategy, and Brian Herta has already given it a shot. He came in and topped off as we anticipate going back to green. He's not the only one, Parker.
Bruno Junqueira, complaining of electrical problems, also came into the pits.
Well, teamwork is essential in racing, just like in business, and winning the Kart FedEx Championship Series requires speed, timing, and precision, not only from the driver, but from the entire team. Well, FedEx also relies on teamwork, combining people technology to send shipments around the world. This season, Joe DeFerrin captured his second consecutive Kart FedEx Championship. The turning point for DeFerrin was going to Europe. In England, DeFerrin passed Kenny Breck on the final lap to secure the victory, providing momentum for his championship run that, of course, was culminated in Australia.
Winning the championship this year, it was just like, this is a great period of my life. I mean, I'll forever remember these 2 years as one of the happiest years that I ever had.
Gil DeFerrin, back-to-back championships.
And he did it the same way. Remained under the radar for most of the year, scoring consistently, and then at the very end put up some big numbers on the board to secure his second championship. Only the fourth driver in kart history to do that, joining the names of Mears, Rahal, and Zanardi.
And of course he did that for Roger Penske. And let's consider Roger Penske pre-99, in which time things were not so good, and then ever since just massive changes made in the team.
Changes with the chassis going to Renard, changes in the engine going to Honda, also switching to Firestone, of course, DeFerrin and Casnevis, and I think one of the most important additions, bringing over Tim Cindric from Team Rahal, who's now president of Penske Racing Operations. That combination, second consecutive championship.
The left side pod you saw off on Bruno Junqueira's car, all the electronics are there, so whatever problem they have, the first and fastest thing you can work with is the electronics, changing out boxes, and if it takes a little longer than that, it could be serious. Also, Roberto Moreno, slow on the race course, still waiting for the cleanup in turn 2. Scott Pruitt.
Well, we're down in the pits right now, and what we're doing is looking at the tires. All the tires have come up on the last pit stop. All the engineers come in and we're going to take a quick look. Here we are. You look at these are wear bars. They look from inside to outside. They're looking at the stagger. If they don't have too much stagger, if they may be getting some overwear on the inside. But as you see, everything looks good. They're also looking at the wear pattern. You can see these grooves coming across the tire. Typically, when you get rain overnight, it's going to take rubber off the track. You can see a little bit more of this. So as the race goes on, they're going to take a quick look and really stay on top of what the tires look like all race long.
Well, Scott, how do you read that tire?
Right now, everything looks great. What we're seeing here is a lot of rubber left on this tire. We're seeing just a little bit of grain, but that's not too much of a problem at this stage of the game. Now you got to remember, these guys are continually working on the setup, trying to get that perfect balance. And we'll have to see what happens with these teams who get it right and get it wrong at the end of the race.
small dots across the carcass of the tire so they can see how much has been worn off. They're like small depth indicator. Keep in mind that these tires are very, very thin. That way it reduces heat buildup in the carcass of the tire.
Bruno Junqueira back in this time to top off the fuel. Now, don't pay attention to the way the engine sounds there on exit. He, of course, is on the speed limiting button, which keeps him under the speed limit and makes the engine sound terrible. He gets to the end of the pits. We'll try to give it a good listen and see if Bruno Junqueira is truly back into this fight. ESPN Speed World coverage of the 500 presented by Toyota is being brought to you by Nextel. How business gets done. Rich Gannon and Jerry Rice, the Raiders are #1 in the AFC West, but they're going to try to prove that they're truly a top team now. They've got to find a way to be Mike Shanahan and the Broncos. Monday Night Football live at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on ABC Sports. A lot of guys have come in deciding to top off at the last moment on this caution period. One of them doing it right now, of course, is Jill DeFerrin. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, one of the exciting things of next year is kind of a super seniors racing for legends. And here's a legend, Parnelli Jones, one of the great 500-mile open-wheel competitors of all time. You're going to get back in a race car and go out and run with some of these old-timers next year?
Well, you know, I went and tested the car, and it seemed like it was a lot of fun, so I'm going to give it a try anyway.
Well, you got some money at stake. You're going to make it worth your while here?
Well, I don't know. I hope they do. You know, obviously, you know, you don't like to do things for nothing, but I'm looking for the enjoyment as much as anything. And some of the racetracks that we run, I really enjoy, and I'd like to go back to. And so I'm going to give it a try. And some of the racetracks I'm not too fond of, so if I don't like them, I won't run them. So.
How about the first 35 laps here before we went yellow? That'll hold your breath time, wouldn't it?
Man, was that exciting. I was getting nervous myself. I was sitting up there watching, and I think these guys are something else.
Well, go get ready to get nervous again and get ready. We look forward to seeing you next year. Parnelli, always great.
All right, thank you.
PJ on scene, Paul.
One of the best. Pace car came into the pits, but the yellow flag came out immediately.
Max Pappas had backed way off on the back straightaway. Let the pace car get way out in front of him, and they want you to match the speed of that pace car until the pace car ducks off, so you have a gradual acceleration, bringing him back to green.
So there'd be a radio warning go out to Max Pappas to keep it moving when you come around. Conditions seem to be changing, Scott. Right now we've got overcast, no sun.
That's exactly right. What we had earlier when he started the race, bright sunshine, really beating down on the track. The track temperature was about 10 degrees hotter when we started. Now we're getting overcast conditions. You can actually feel it getting a little cooler. This will change the way these cars handle, and that's the perfect time for these drivers to be talking back to the engineers, as well as the engineers to be up to speed on what kind of changes they're going to want to make throughout this race.
Pappas, Castroneves, D'Amata, Franchitti, Tracy. They will bring the field back. Pappas hopefully with a little more oomph than he did last time around. He's got Castroneves up there trying to give him a boost, but momentum coming back to the green is critical. And there he may have sucked Elio in just a little bit. About the time Elio got out of it, Pappas got on it. Here goes the green flag, and we're at it again.
We saw last time it took about 15 laps for the drivers to settle down. I think it'll only take 1 or 2 laps before they find a comfortable place to run once again. But Jan and I were talking while we were away as to why every one of these cars didn't come in and top up, because that caution period was 11 laps, and because it only, whoa, we saw someone drop way down on the apron. It only takes a handful of laps to go from last to first. Why wouldn't you take advantage? John, did you ever come up with a reason?
No, I just think that they're used to doing it this way, and this is a unique race where they're not used to the fact that track position may not make much difference.
And reiterating that as we watch from Memo Gidley's position back in 6th. A lot of cars, you may not have seen all of them, but a lot of cars came in toward the end of the yellow just to top off the fuel tanks.
Obviously had a chat with Memo, running now much more conservatively. You could hear him back out of the throttle. This yellow gave the drivers a chance to settle down, except some of these guys, like Paul Tracy, just have to go to the front, because once a racer, always a racer. I don't think there's a big enough stick to get him to slow down.
Now with
listen to him back out of the throttle here.
That's Franchitti just ahead. Pappas, the leader, ahead of Franchitti. Well, there it goes. Cristiano.
Yeah, but you could see what happened. The car was on rails, tracking very well. He had Gidley go down low. You could see all the movement in his hands as the car started to get away from him a little bit. And then, as he had to back off the throttle, everyone else split him. It was even in more turbulence. It's like following 2 or 3 semi-trucks down the road. And all of a sudden, the whole car just disconnected. Cristiano looking for a way to get it hooked back up.
Franchitti and Kanaan battle. Kanaan wins out for second. As we look at the line, the speeds. Oh. Real speeds are way down there in the back. Yeah, everybody in the front's in a fight. Tony Kanaan now pushes, dare I say it, a nose in front. I did.
I knew you were going to say that.
Scott Pruitt. We saw Junqueira in as Pappas comes back to the lead. We saw Junqueira in. What's the problem there?
Well, the biggest thing is they're wanting to get the telemetry system working again. What were they having a problem with the PI system, and decided to take that as an opportunity to come in, recycle the system or reset the system so they can get the telemetry back up and working again. They're having some problems with it. It's a perfect opportunity for them to take it as an advantage and get back online.
And what's most critical there is they have to use that system to figure out the fuel mileage. Unless they want to go back to calculator and pencil.
Target Chip Ganassi, very smart in how they did that. They brought him in, tried to make an adjustment, tried to diagnose the problem, but would send him back out before the pace car came around, so that even though he came in a total of 4 times, he's still on the lead lap.
Yeehaw, Gidley's back at the front of the field. You look back from Gidley's car. Oh, this is cool.
The world's ultimate, most expensive video game. Unfortunately, when you make a mistake, it's not a matter of just rebooting.
For those of you younger than 20, the racing came before the video. Thought I'd clarify that. Parker wasn't sure. Down the back stretch. Boy, they're just staying tucked so close together. Castroneves comes up again. Franchitti has been running high with Castroneves, and Castroneves has been getting away with some incredibly high lines here. Look at that.
That's one of the changes we've seen at this track over the years. A lot of people said, oh, it's almost a mirror of Michigan. Well, it's not. It was a very narrow line for the first few years, but with all the races they've had here, this line's gotten wider and wider, and now the drivers are able to run low, middle, or high.
Gary Gerald, Elio Castroneves came to second, now being challenged again by Pappas.
Part of the learning curve for young race drivers is absorbing something from one year, carrying it forward to the next. Last year at this track, Elio Castroneves learned that high line can be very, very fast. And we had us wondering early on if the car was loose, but no. It's just the fact that he's found that that's a good, fast way around. And a year later, he is now really putting it to a good test. And he continues to fight for the lead with Nemo Gidley and Max Pappas.
Here's Brian Hurdy. You got a glimpse of him, early leader in the race. He led for 5 laps, but he brings it down into the pits, back to the front.
And if you've got a car that's handling well, that's well balanced, you're able to run around that high groove. You have to drive a little farther around the track, but you're not pinching the steering wheel, scrubbing more speed going through the corners. It frees the car up, allows ultimately more speed. Now, we watched the Indy Lights race previous to this race. These cars aren't going nearly as fast. They don't have the power. They have a lot more downforce, so they just run the shortest distance around the inside. These guys, they want to make these corners as wide as possible, turning the steering wheel as little as possible to maximize forward speed.
D'Amata takes the lead on the last lap. Now look at this charge.
I should add to that, though, Paul, if you're running the high line and anything goes wrong, you have very little wiggle room up there.
Now, that makes it interesting. trouble early on, and not have passed for the lead of the race, just trying to get laps back for Patrick Carpentier, but now proving that he is fully capable of running leader speeds.
Well, he went a lap down because they had a boost control problem that miraculously fixed itself. So Pat wants to make sure that he tries to get back on the lead lap, which he has done now. So if they have a full course caution, he'll make up that track space, and he'll be right back into the hunt.
18 different lead changes, 7 different leaders. Cristiano D'Amata with Gidley all over the back end of his car is on the lead onto the backstretch.
On the scanners, there's a lot of coaching going on, trying to keep these drivers throttled back, trying to make sure that they maintain a nice pace.
D'Amata, Gidley, Castroneves, Tracy, Vassar, and Max Pappas. 2 Toyotas, 2 Hondas, a Toyota, and a Ford. But that's just for the moment. Cars of Supercross as they head to the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas for the U.S. Open. Jeremy McGrath will try to regain his dominance from the defending race and series champion, little Ricky Carmichael. He can see all the high-flying action of the U.S. Open next Sunday at 5:30 Eastern on ESPN2. Back at the 500, presented by Toyota. Gidley is the leader. That's Patrick Carpentier that sits just ahead of the leader, but he is at the tail end now of the lead lap owing to his early problems. Still very hazy here. Overcast on the track, though there is some blue sky. The sun could come out again, and Scott Pruitt has already told you that the changing track temperatures truly figure. Oh, we have an engine. It looks like it was starting to go. Looks like Paul. Is it Paul Tracy or? There it is, and it's Tracy.
Imagine a cool car smoking.
Ba-bum-bum.
Paul Tracy finally at least was able to lead a lap. He's still in very good humor. He's had one of those seasons that just haven't gone well.
Last year, it blew for him too, only then it was an enormous plenum explosion that ended up kicking some debris turbocharger out on the track. So Tracy becomes one of the early exits from this race along with Kenny Breck. Let's go to Jan Vikas.
And of course the other would be Brian Herta. And Brian, what put you out? Looked like you had a strong car.
I had a really strong car. I went to the front early just to make sure we could lead. Then I went to the back to save fuel. We were just riding. And looks like the voltage regulator on the engine broke. Took us out of the race, just shut the engine off. It's the 3rd time this year for that problem. So it's a shame, but, you know, at least I had a good car. We got to lead a little bit.
Now, you're the first driver we've had a chance to talk to that has come off this racetrack. It seems wild and fast and furious out there, more than we had expected. That surprised even you?
Yeah, well, I think what you're seeing is nobody wants to lead the race because it takes so much fuel to lead the race that everybody's just trying to find how their cars are working. But it's so close that there's a lot of tight racing out there, and there's a lot of real close moments. It's a little bit hairy.
Thank you, Brian.
We just saw one of those moments.
We saw one of those moments. We wondered why Cristiano D'Amata was going higher and higher. Then we saw Gidley come down on the inside.
That's the thing that you may not be aware of. We may be focused on one car, but the cars around that driver are greatly affecting how that car is handling. We could see Cristiano D'Amata get in the wake of a car next to him and went very, very up high, almost out of the groove.
We're watching Dario Franchitti now, Paul Tracy's teammate, because there is some concern being reported that he too may have an engine problem.
We talked about running low, middle, high. Cristiano D'Amata told me yesterday he's got a perfect car. He can run around the middle. If he goes low, it goes a little loose. He goes high, it pushes a little bit so he can control the balance of the car. But these other cars have a much greater effect than anything he's doing or where he's driving.
Already, Paul Tracy is out of the car, Jan.
Well, it's Gary Cole, as it turns out. No problem, but Paul Tracy is here. And Paul, a spectacular run from 18th up to the front to finally lead in this season and then have what kind of a problem? Just motor?
Yeah, the engine blew up, and disappointing for everybody on the team because we had a perfect car today, one that could win very easily, and it's disappointing for everybody. You know, it's kind of how our whole season's gone this whole year. It's just been one disappointment after another, and we've got to refocus and concentrate on next year and try to come back strong.
Were you able to enjoy yourself for a while at
I was
least?
having fun because I knew I had a great car, and I was just sitting there, you know, just cruising, and the engine let go.
Thanks, Paul. No $1 million for Paul Tracy. Jan Bigas, you got any candidates?
Well, unfortunately, there's no $1 million for Kenny Breck also. First of all, Kenny, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
What happened out there?
Yeah, I don't know. I got loose and turned around. I don't know what it was. Another car reported that was some fluid or something a couple of laps earlier. I don't know whether that's the case or not. We haven't investigated yet. Shell car ran good all day, but it got really loose, and in the pack, try to back away from it, then you get overtaken from other cars. So it's like doomed if you do and doomed if you don't. And in the end, I spun around, so I don't know. We'll investigate it now.
Just spoke with Brian Hurd, and he said no one wants to lead this race. Is that what you saw as well when you were up there, people backing off? That's why the pack is so big?
It's getting big like this, but even if people are running a good speeds, you know, the draft makes it makes it a blob, like moving around like this. So you're in the middle of it or in front or the back of it. That's the way it goes, but it's exciting for the fans.
I know you didn't want to end your stint with Team Rahal this way, but excited about the Ganassi opportunity next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's being with Team Rahal has been great fun all year. You know, we have had a fantastic season, and I wish them all the best, and look forward to my future as well.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks.
And on the 71st lap, Michel Jourdain Jr. came in, topped off fuel. What looked to be a routine stop. While he did that, Jimmy Vasser joined the list of leaders and then fell back. Max Pappas still officially being scored in the lead.
Well, we talk about an off-season, but for Kenny Breck and Jimmy Vasser, Kenny going to target Chip Ganassi, Vasser going to Team Rahal, their off-season will consist of a two-week break, which is mandatory under blackout under kart rules, and they're immediately starting their PR stints as well as winter testing.
Now officially, Jimmy Vasser is posted now as the 8th leader of the race. 21 different official lead changes in 73 laps.
And I'm a little surprised he's on point. Jimmy knows exactly the way this car has to feel. He's been so successful on the 500 milers, particularly when there's $1 million at stake. He won the inaugural US 500 and many more since then. I'm surprised he hasn't backed off a little bit here.
Gary Gerald, update on Franchitti.
Yeah, just a quick update. After we talked to Paul Tracy, we checked in with Barry Green and Kyle Moyer and asked them if they had any indication of any type of engine problem for Dario, and they looked at each other and said, no, we know of nothing, wondering if maybe we knew something they didn't know, but their telemetry indicates everything is fine, no problems at the moment for Franchitti. Let's go to Jan.
Well, I was thinking what Parker just said about Jimmy Vasser taking the lead. Parker, maybe it's possible where guys are just trying to see where they pull out the pass if they wanted to take the lead on the final lap. So if Jimmy Vasser were to stay on point, I would agree with you, but maybe he's just trying to see what it'll take for the final lap.
Sunshine has come out again for most of the track. The front stretch is still in a little shadow. And there is Dario Franchitti. That ends that conversation.
And we knew something they didn't, apparently.
And we have a yellow. So when Dario's engine let go, they decided yellow flag come out. Pits are closed.
And this is right in the fuel window. People are starting to get ready for the next round of stops.
And Parker, remember when we wondered why no one else came onto pit road? Well, that strategy has just been blown because now they get to do it under yellow.
Yep, but it's one of those things you have to keep working that strategy, don't you? Carpente now gets his wish. They will wave him around the pace car once they form up. So he'll remain on that lead lap and make up that track position.
Already many of the teams have begun to lay out equipment. The engine looked like it started to go in approximately the same area that Kenny Breck had his problems, so adding to already those worries of an oil down there, though it appears that they got it cleaned up effectively. They have another oil spill from the blown engine to deal with. Jimmy Vasser, including today, look at his numbers, 2,500 mile starts. And by the way, those 2 wins, each one of them worth $1 million.
He won here in 98, as it says. He also finished second the previous year in 97. He knows how to run 500-mile races.
So we'll look for the pits to open up. They have not done it this time around. The board out there indicates that they must stay out of the pits, though they are back behind the pace car, and the guy that's probably going to serve the best will be Carpentier.
Carpentier, he's now back on that lead lap. He's been waved around the pace car. He'll form up at the back of the field and then be able to come in with the leaders when they open the pits.
So our second caution period of the day. The first one for Kenny Breck, his impact with the wall off of turn 2. Here's Carpentier as they wave him around, put him back on the lead lap. And shortly we expect everybody to head for the pit road. Now this is the view down from a bright orange Monster.com blimp floating over the track, providing us with great views of the action on the track. Monster.com. Jobs good, life good. Field is on the backstretch. 76 laps are complete, 250 laps, 500 miles, the scheduled distance. The last laps of the year. Already we've crowned the champion. Jill DeFerrin, second place is assured. Kenny Breck, who's already out of the race. Still a bit of a battle, though, for third. Let's go to Jan.
Well, for Max Pappas, they are expecting to put in 30 gallons of fuel and add some front wing because he's been having some push out there on the racetrack in traffic. And you know what, Parker, I've been thinking about this. Now that we have determined that track position is really not that big of a deal right now, I think maybe these crews will take it a bit easy, not push so hard to have a fast stop and make a mistake because they change positions so quickly on the racetrack. Gary?
For Jimmy Vasser, who's now the race leader in his final drive for Patrick Racing this season, they're anticipating absolutely no aerodynamic changes on the car. It'll be fuel and rubber only. He's near pit out with only his teammate Moreno in front of him. We'll get a good eyeball and see who's best out of the pits. Jan?
Max Pappas about to peel off here. Again, what you want to look for is they will add some front wing to this car. And about 30 gallons. There goes the... They only give him a half turn. That's 10.4, and let's see what happens at Gary's end.
All right, Roberto Moreno was rolling by into his pit box. Vasser gets his routine service. No aero tweaks at all. Waiting for the fueling. Here comes the gaggle of cars. Oh, it's going to be Castro Neves, Damata, Canaan, then Vasser.
Good call, Gary. That was tight at the line. Vasser did not make it out ahead of the remainder of the field as Castro Neves came by. Canaan, Damata, and Jimmy Vasser had to slot back into fourth place. And once again, we just want to show you how they came out of the pits. Look down the long pit road. Jimmy Vasser, lower right-hand corner. They're just finishing work. Just not enough acceleration, and Helio Castroneves takes over the lead. We'll be back.
Is it 5/16 or 9/32? Does it take a standard socket or metric? What you need is the Gator Grip, the amazing socket that works on over 1,000 nuts, bolts, and fasteners. Watch, no matter what size fastener, nut, bolt, wing nut, square nut, eye bolt, hook, most anything, Gator Grip holds on tight to finish the job quickly and easily.
Well, welcome back to California Speedway, Fontana, California, the running of the 500. Presented by Toyota. Late yesterday, the Craftsman Pit Stop Challenge went to the final round with Mauricio Guzman facing Kenny Breck.
Great stop by Guzman's crew, but it was Kenny Breck's crew that won the $50,000 Craftsman Pit Stop Challenge prize, beating the team from Pac West by 47 thousandths of a second. Others included in this final round were Helio Castroneves' crew, DeFerrence, and Oriol Servias.
Speaking of pit stops, on the stops just completed, starting on lap 77. Andretti moves forward. Fittipaldi. Barron had a problem there, but a lot of changing during those stops. Scott, you can update what was going on with Gidley.
And that's exactly right. Mimo called in and said the car's a little bit loose, guys. Let's give us a little bit more wicker, and that's exactly what they did on the last stop. They put up the rear wicker just a little bit, trying to get a little more security out of the rear of that race car.
Pace car is already off. Acceleration begins. As you can see, it's still very hazy here. Damata brings the field down across the line. Damata takes the lead away from Castroneves at the line. Got a good jump on Castroneves. Vasser's going for third alongside Canaan.
And the problem these drivers are going to face, you can see it there as they head down this straightaway into turn 3. Now as the sun is coming through the haze, they're looking directly into the sun. Look at the reflection off the visors of the drivers. And in about 20 to 25 minutes, it's nearly going to be blind on entry into turn 3.
And from time to time, back in 6th place, you will get a glimpse of Casey Mears, who had a spectacular run at this race last year. And now he's up running with the front runners.
Let's take a look at the view from Cristiano D'Amata as he heads down this long back straightaway. Look at that haze. Look at the glare.
That's Casey.
Now look as they come down. Now we've got a filter on this camera, but right here you can see that sun flare. It's nearly impossible to see where exactly you are in relationship to the groove coming into turn 3.
Update on the leader, Cristiano D'Amata, Gary Gerald.
Well, right now, as they go by us into turn number 1, he's stretching the lead over Vassar and Castro Neves. But, Paul, it was interesting. We heard this radio conversation. You know Kenny Seawick has been with the Numanas team for years and years. He's on the radio with Cristiano, and he was saying, Cristiano, we don't want you to lead the race. It puts a frown on my face when you lead.
Puts a frown on my face. All right. Casey Mears, we mentioned him. Scott Pruitt, you're watching him.
And with the Pioneer guys, and they said Casey's doing exactly what we want him to do. He's being conservative with the race car. He's learning. You got to remember, he's a rookie. It's the first time that he's got up there and started shuffling around with these guys, and so far they're happy with what he's doing and real pleased with the results so far. And you can see how he's running. He's doing a great job.
Now racing with his teammate Tony Kanaan and making his presence known just behind these two cars. Here comes Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti with Christian Fittipaldi just behind him. Andretti currently 7th. Casey comes around Tony Kanaan.
You know, and it's one thing to be a rookie. It's another thing to be 23 years old, being in Alex Zanardi's car and being placed in this championship towards the end of the season. No testing, no way to try to get a handle on what's going on. It's like being thrown to the sharks. Casey Mears, remember, he finished 4th here last year at Fontana. A lot of attrition, but now running up in front in a very, very mature, very measured way.
And since you mentioned Alex Zanardi, Casey Mears, of course, replacing him in the cockpit. Alex was able to head home to Monte Carlo to continue his rehabilitation and therapy. He's very happy to be there. And when he left the hospital in Berlin, I had to tell you, he looked terrific.
Yeah, for those of you who missed his interview on Cart Today earlier, he did look great. He's just proving that he's a champion not only in racing, but also a champion in life. And we will always be big fans of Alex Zanardi, and we look forward to seeing him back in our presence again.
Teammates Fittipaldi and D'Amata down low. Casey Mears making a nice move.
The one thing about being 23 years old and brought into this situation is I think he's probably paying attention to what they're telling him.
Elio Castroneves, and it looks like that motor is gone.
Engine number 12 for the weekend. Actually, it's the 3rd for this race. That makes it 13 for the weekend.
Elio Castroneves pulls it off, gets it down nice and low, so that oil should not affect the track. Here is a battle for the lead once again. Pappas and Vassar. And Casey down on the inside.
Right now, if I were running a Honda power plant, they may have clinched their 6th Drivers' Championship, their 4th Manufacturers' Championship, but all 3 of the engine failures we've had today, both Team Green cars and now Elio Castroneves, have all been from Honda power. So if I were any of the rest of these guys, Fernandez Racing, Casey Mears, Tony Kanaan, I would fall back in line. If I were DeFerrin, especially now looking at that $1 million, I would really breathe the engine and take it easy.
You saw Dario Franchitti pull out. He's now with Gary.
Dario Franchitti in July at Michigan, it was 27th to finish 2nd in the 500 miles. Today, from 22nd up to the front pack. Any warning at all when the engine went away?
Yeah, we got about half a lap warning. It started to tighten up, and I pulled down onto the low line because I could feel it tighten up, and it just got tighter. And then eventually I tried to get off the track before it left a trail of oil. We just managed that, but very disappointing because it was looking good. The car was fantastic.
What's it like when nobody really wants to be in the number 1 spot to lead a race like this for 500 miles?
No, well, the first thing is people are braking, I think, on a super speedway for the first time in a long time, trying to get out of the throttle, trying to get out of the line so people will pass them so they can then pull into draft. It's kind of like a game of chess out there. Everybody's, you know, trying to sort of stay up the lead pack, not get too far back, but not get right up the front. I think we're going to see an interesting finish, though.
I'm sure we are. Sorry, the million isn't going your way.
Let's try next year. Thank you for everything, Gary.
Thank you, Dario.
Dario mentioned chess. That's exactly what this is at 230 miles an hour. There are a lot of physical demands on the body. They're pulling over 4 Gs in these corners for 30% of the lap. But mentally, you are absolutely exhausted after a 500-mile run.
Well, you saw it as D'Amata goes by. Michael finally makes his presence known at the front of the field and gets out in front. Like he did that a little bit past the line, so he's not scored yet as an official leader of the race. But from our point of view, it's Michael Andretti in front for the moment.
Expert, I'm not here to change your diapers, ladies. I'm here to help you learn. College basketball on ESPN. Learn from the best.
Sunday night, Ricky Williams and the New Orleans Saints host Curtis Martin and the New York Jets. 2 of the best running backs in the game go head-to-head. Sunday night football, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. Mike Patrick, Paul McGuire, Joe Theismann, they have the call. Coverage begins with NFL Primetime, presented by Miller Lite at 7:30. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. Looking down from the blimp overhead the track, the Monster.com blimp. Max Pappas, the leader officially, last time across the line, followed by D'Amata, Andretti, Casey Mears, Christian Fittipaldi, Alex Tagliani. Patrick Carpentier, since that restart and getting his lap back, has been charging through the field, now is 14th. So the Michigan 500 leader looking pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're fast.
They're scary fast.
And the interval, Parker, at the front of the field remains very, very tight. The first 7 are all within 1 second, lap after lap. There's the reason why.
And for those of you at home that have never been to a super speedway, until you come down and sit on the entry to turn 1 and watch these cars enter at over 240 miles an hour, over 16,000 RPM, the smell of the methanol, you just can't fathom how fast and how exciting these cars are.
You actually can feel the energy as the car passes you. Helio Castroneves, the champion of the Indianapolis 500, not going to win this one, Gary.
Well, no, it's been a marvelous year nonetheless, but you ended up with another Honda type of a problem. We just asked Franchitti if he had any warning. Did you have any warning whatsoever that something might be going wrong?
Well, that will happen in practice, so I was kind of I knew what's going to happen. I remember last year as well, I was leading the race, and by 26 laps to go, and I had the same trouble, except that the car ended up in a wall because of the oil and everything. So this time I noticed that as soon as I went to make a pass in Jimmy, all of a sudden the car slowed down too much, and I said, well, this is not normal. I mean, I've been doing this all the time, and normally it's not doing that. So I guess I'm not supposed to finish, and we did a tremendous change in the car from yesterday to today. Obviously, look really well over there. We're looking very in a good shape. It's a shame. I mean, Martin Penske did a fantastic job this year. I'm happy. Well, happy because I won Indy 500. Did a good job this year. Gilles won the championship. Could be me. He won twice already. But anyway, I think I have to learn even more, and hopefully in the future, who knows who can be the champion now.
We certainly look forward to that. I want to take you down. I want you to look at the footwear, Paul, before we get away. It certainly wasn't the fault of the shoes. They're the most stylish shoes on pit road today, but they didn't go 500 miles.
And can he reveal his personal designer there, Gary?
Who's your designer?
Well, that was Simpson. It's not fashion. It's because it's too hot out there, you know?
Well, in the early going, Gidley was up at the front of the field. He's fallen back now to 19th. Scott Pruitt, what's going on there?
Changed the back of the car. They actually added some gurney, a little more downforce in the back. He does not like the change. He's not happy with the way the car's handling. This feels he's lost too much speed, so when they come back in, they're going to go back on that change, but it's not a good one.
Well, thank goodness for computers, electronic scoring, and the little representation that we can put in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, because without it, I don't think any of us can keep track of this thing. Max Pappas, officially the leader last time around, followed by D'Amata and Casey Mears.
Before we get too far away from Gary's interview with Elio, Elio's going to be watching this race very carefully. He is tied with Michael Andretti for third in the championship. It's a $100,000 difference between third and fourth. If Michael doesn't score points, it'll go to Elio because of his 3 victories to Michael's 1.
And Parker, that was the first thing that Elio said to me. He says, "Where's Michael?" And he was looking up at the pylon to see that his position right now, number 5.
And look at this glare, Paul. In about 10 more minutes, it will be absolutely brutal as the sun will sit just above the wall. Now the guys are starting to pick up that problem as they come out of 2, all the way down the back straightaway, and then it gets really bad on the entry of 3.
Jan Vikas, in the last 2 laps, Patrick Carpentier has picked up 4 stops going from 10th to 6th.
Yeah, I wondered about that. So I ran down to the crew. I said, "I thought you guys didn't have any boost." They said, "Oh, we fixed it." "How'd you fix it?" He says, "Well, it was the sensor on the top of the pop-off valve." I said, well, you couldn't change it." He goes, "No, we just played with the connection, beat on it, and now the thing works." So that's just some great good fortune for Patrick Carpentier.
Yeah, look at the move up through the field. From the start, then he had his problems. Fell back, and then got his lap back, and goodbye.
And that's really the story, is that he was 25th, but he had to come all the way through the field to get that lap back to then put himself back in 10th place. Not like John's example of how to treat this fine, delicate electrical equipment. It's one of the first things they taught me in engineering school, is how to hit the circuit board just right to get everything to work.
Just hit it, but not too hard.
That's exactly right.
And that's not the first time, though, that we've seen problems with that particular sensor, where actually a couple of times we've had reports of the cable to that sensor completely falling off.
Juan Montoya Motegi just a few years ago, comfortably leading the race, fell off, took Toyota's victory away.
Patrick Carpentier now to 4th. Max Pappas, Cristiano D'Amata, Casey Mears, and now Carpentier having a very interesting battle. In the Rahal Letterman pit, Scott Remke keeps track. The rest of the crew's watching it. I'm not sure they believe it. ESPN Speed World coverage of the 500, presented by Toyota, is being brought to you by Outback Steakhouse. No rules, just right. Carpentier had the lead for a lap. Cristiano did. Casey Mears had it. It continues to change. Matter of fact, Carpentier, when he got overhauled, fell all the way back to 6th place. Look at the lead changes. Record of 59 in 2000, 41 already. We're not to the halfway point yet. The green average up above 212.4. The average speed, including the yellow, at 161.9 miles an hour. And on the inside, you got a glimpse of him there. Alex Barron, who, remember, right after they started engines, came into the pits, had to have him work on his car. He's up in 8th place right now. He's replaced, as you will remember, Max Wilson in that car.
He had a great run last year, both at Surfers and here at Fontana, until he had mechanical problems right at the end. He's driving a 2000 version Lola. The 2001 remains in its elementary components in some form down at Surfers.
In several different places.
When I spoke with Alex yesterday, he said it wasn't that big of a disadvantage. Maybe in qualifying it was, but running in this pack, he didn't feel that he would have that big of a problem with a year-old car.
Michael Andretti, officially the leader last time around. But Max Pappas will be scored as the leader as Michael drops back to 4th. Pappas was followed by D'Amata and Casey Mears. How tight the front of the field is.
That is so cool.
That was them.
Looking inside.
I'm looking for the stragglers.
Where's Michael? Inside.
These guys are only occupying.
Inside. Still there. You're clear.
These guys are only occupying about a quarter to a quarter and a half of racetrack. Drivers have.
Outside. 2 cars outside.
That other car is Fernandez now coming up to the front.
Outside.
Big difference in preference of drivers. Some guys like spotters talking to them like this the whole race. Other drivers like myself, Carpente, for example, they don't want to hear anything unless it's absolutely critical. You have good situational awareness. You know where these cars are. You can feel them coming up behind you. You might lose them a little bit to the sides as they're coming up around you, but you have that feel. I just remain focused, not have someone yakking at me the whole race. Other drivers need that constant link, that constant communication.
You got a momentary view of Roberto Moreno. There he is again. We last saw him when he was going fairly slow. Then we had no further reports, but Moreno is up running in the top 10 now, along with his teammate, Jimmy Vasser. Let's go again to Scott Pruitt.
Well, I'm going to update on the Fernandez team. They've had and have seen all these engine failures as well as having another than themselves. So I just got done talking to them, and they said, you know what, we're playing it very, very conservative. We want to make it to the checkered flag, so we're being very, very easy on the engine right now. So that's what they're doing.
I talked about the coaching that's been going on since the beginning of the race. You absolutely have to convince your driver that he's got to stay back. He's got to let someone else take the point, punch the hole in the air, use up their engine. You've just got to find a place to be comfortable. I've been watching Vasser this last few laps. A lot of these guys will go in 2, 3 abreast. Jimmy a little bit more conservative. You see him down low there, the back of the screen. He doesn't want to get pinched down low or forced up high, either on the entry or the exit of these corners. So not only there he is, not only taking care of his car but with the engine, but making sure right there that he's got plenty of room. He's not taking any chances on the way in or the way out of the corner.
Adrian Fernandez is now scored as a leader of the race. We've had 48 lead changes, 13 different leaders. There is Adrian sitting back in this top 10 group that's running together as Vasser and Roberto Moreno. We also mentioned that Alex Barron has come into this group and last time across the line showed up as 6th place. But Moreno and Vasser, they drive for the Patrick Racing team. Working with that team, who had a great ride with Patrick in the early years, is Steve Krisiloff. He's in the management capacity there, and another generation of drivers is coming up. Casey Mears into the pits, and that's a little early. But Krisiloff's son, Kyle, won Formula Ford in the runoff, started 5th, moved up to 3rd on the first lap, then despite a couple of full course cautions, took the lead early on and control it with a very excited grandma, Mary George, watching it. Fernandez, front of the field.
So much for Fernandez taking it easy. I think Alex Barron's got himself right where he wants to be. He slowly moved his way through this field, getting a feel for what the traffic's like at the front, because remember, as you get closer to the front, the balance of the car will change. You're in a little cleaner air, and as we get down to the halfway point here, we've only got 8 more laps. These guys are going to start thinking about how to get these cars trimmed out and how to position themselves for that sprint to the end.
Adrian Fernandez comes out of the lead onto the pit road. 119th lap. This is just a tick earlier than we would have predicted, just a lap earlier. Jan Beekes, though, is waiting for him.
Yeah, and you know, Scott was just saying that they're taking care of the engine. Well, one way you take care of the engine is you give it more fuel. So that could be why we see Adrian Fernandez a little bit ahead of the other guys. They add some front wing, and that's taking a lot of fuel. 12.6 takes a little bit longer now. There's less fuel in the pit tank.
Max Pappas on the pit road. Boy, Jan knows that stuff. But you know what that does? At the line, it gives the lead over to Alex Barron. Another new leader. Jan Beekes.
Watching Max Pappas. Again, very deliberate on the tire changing.
Watch Barron.
No wing changes.
Watch Barron. Go, 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 go. All clear.
Nice and routine stop for Max Pappas.
Voice of Mark Johnson, coaching Max Pappas. Cristiano D'Amato, we're hearing, is getting about 10% better fuel mileage than Max Pappas. Some of the rest up to 2.5 gallons per hour. The other guys 2.2 to 2.3. So it'll be a few more laps before we see Cristiano come in.
And with 0.8 of a second in front, this represents the largest lead that we have seen in the 121 laps that we've run.
He's looking in his mirror going, where did everybody go? He's coming in, actually, a little earlier than we had thought. Big transition here for the drivers. Off the banking from 230 all the way down to 50. They have to make the transition off the asphalt onto the concrete, and they have carbon fiber brakes for these races.
Look for Timmy in the pit.
A lot of people coming.
You have a clear approach.
Number of cars coming in. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
I'm behind Kenny Seawick, so I can't see if there's a smile or a frown on his face right now, but he's talking to D'Amata as he comes in at 50 miles per hour. Michael Andretti is in the next pit box, pivots off the nose. D'Amata's crew goes to work. They were targeting 2.56 miles per gallon to get to this stop. Everything looks routine, no routine changes. 11.4 seconds as he gets away, and now Michael Andretti digs out right behind him.
Zagliani has just pulled out. Nice stop, 11.47 seconds just ahead of him. Now we see DeFerrin set up for his stop.
And here comes Gil DeFerrin. He comes into the pits out of 11th position. Remember, this guy sandbags. He did it with the season. Now he's going to maybe try it with this race.
And Paul, we're watching this one from behind. Well, it's a great angle, the way the car shifts back and forth when they go for the tires. That's 11.85 for DeFerrin. Nice stop.
And you just saw another version of the Penske ballet. They are so good. Out comes the starter engine right behind, just in case they stall the engine. Of course, everybody does that, but they're just on top of everything. Roger Penske up there, the captain of everything on the wall, holding him up until time to go. And look at this. Patrick Carpentier, leader of the race, fell all the way to last. He goes for the pits. Christian Fittipaldi is already there, Gary.
Watching Jimmy Vasser get his servicing complete, waiting for the fuel. You hear those revs go up from the back of the car. Christian Fittipaldi beats him out, however.
Now you see the emotion from the team and the applause as he head out. Here's Carpentier, Jan.
Yeah, and you know, even the crew had to put their hands up over their helmets because of the glare down here to be sure that it was him. I mean, the glare in the sun, like Parker was saying, is getting very low. He cleans his visor. No obvious changes. That's pretty nice. 11.7. That's one of the best we've seen thus far.
Our new and 15th leader of the race, Oriol Servia, as when he completes this lap, we will be at the halfway point. Important because it now is an official race.
Fuel flowing.
Dixon out of third place, already crowned as the Rookie of the Year. Winner at Nazareth, 21 years old. Oriol Servia comes out of the lead onto the pit road. Tora Takagi becomes the 16th different leader. Jan?
And we're going to watch Oriol Servia. Keep in mind, Paul, that his last stop that he had trouble with the gearbox. He was leaving the pits and had some trouble with first and second gear, and they think that the problem is fixed, but we'll find out when he takes off. You may have seen briefly the carbon rotors on the super speedways, the only place they run those. Well, that was nice. 11.2 on my watch, and I don't hear any gearbox problem. That sounds pretty nice.
So the Denso car, Tora Takagi, driving for Derek Walker, picks up the lead. Takagi has shown moments of brilliance during this season.
And now every single driver, with the exception of one, has led a lap during this season. Even Casey Mears, Alex Barron, the only one, Shinji Nakano, but we still have a lot of racing left.
Unfortunately, hate to break this to you, but they're...
No, I know. He's done, Paul.
They're pushing Shinji Nakano's car back into the paddock area.
I was waiting for you to pick that up.
Takes up the lead of the race. You didn't see it.
Sure I did.
Takagi's in. Jan Vikas.
Watching from a couple pits ahead of Tora Takagi. Everything very routine there. Again, just waiting for fuel. 13 seconds. He would have liked it to be a bit quicker, but hey, everything went okay.
The rain does not appear in the picture. We've completed 128 laps. We are an official race. They're going to go for the 250 and the 500 miles. I don't think there's any doubt of that. And And the shifting continues up at the front of the field in the 500. The guy, Franchitti, Castroneves. But at the front of the field, as we come back live, Adrian Fernandez in front of Cristiano D'Amata and Michael Andretti, and the field is still closely grouped. Now, on the stops just completed, our first round of stops under green all the way. Look at that. Look at the move by Tagliani and Fittipaldi. And Christian Fittipaldi, it worked out for him because he just took the lead of the race.
The last year's $1 Million winner has been fairly quiet mid-pack, but obviously now making a move to the front as we look at that pit summary. Just to give you an idea of the difference in fuel mileage, Casey Mears got the worst mileage at 39 laps. Oriol Servia went 48 laps on a fuel load. Significant difference.
As we watch Christian Fittipaldi, I guess what we have to think about is who has been consistently at the front. And one of them is the current fifth-place driver, Max Pappas, 47 laps in the lead. Cristiano D'Amata has been up there. Gidley has been up there. Castroneves has, but now he's out of competition. So it kind of points overall, perhaps, to Pappas. Let's go to Jan.
Remember we talked about Patrick Carpentier and that pop-off valve problem. That may be returning. He just called on the radio and said something is amiss. I think it might be coming back. So unfortunately, it might be one of those intermittent problems for him. And boy, that'd be a shame.
Well, he's fallen after the stops down to 9th. And in the last lap, he fell 3 more laps, 3 more positions down to 11th. There goes Tony Kanaan around. That puts him 12th, back to the leader. Sun becoming more and more of a factor as it begins to touch the horizon off to the west, which is just off of an angular view of turn 3.
I was out on the track the other afternoon, and I remember from having raced here in the past, especially since we're a little delayed in the start, the only track that reminds me of this problem is Phoenix, where late in the day, going down into turn 1, you can't see anything. When you test there during the winter, you actually suspend testing until the sun goes down behind the wall, so you get that last 45 minutes or so before dark. Look at this. Right now, you just focus as best you can on the cars in front of you and use them as a guide into the corner. But if you're the lead car, it gets more and more difficult. Because you got to remember, these guys are traveling over 350 feet per second. You turn the steering wheel a 1/10 of a second too late, you're 35 feet offline. Turning the wheel, you don't have to turn it very often, but when you turn it is very, very crucial.
I mentioned the laps led. They're the top 5. Of course, Castroneves is out of that competition. Jan Beekens.
Hey, Paul, I was just thinking about engines and reliability. Remember that normally a kart race is 225 miles or less, so sometimes they'll build them for about 300. Well, right now we're at, what, 270 miles. So really, pretty soon they're going to be in uncharted territory. So they build special engines to last 500 miles, but from here on out, this is where it gets critical.
And Jan, from what I've heard from some of the engine manufacturers, they actually build sort of 400-mile motors and then just hope they make the extra 100 miles. Now, obviously, they do durability testing, but still, this getting to the last portions of this race, a lot of the engine manufacturers walking around with fingers crossed.
Scott Pruitt, you've been keeping track of Takagi and the Denso car.
Yeah, they've been real pleased so far. In fact, they're just hanging out in a draft, getting about 3 miles to the gallon. That's why they've taken an extra few laps before they had to come in for that pit stop. Just playing it real conservative, real smart, staying in the draft, saving a lot of fuel to stretch out those pit stops.
Takagi is now back in 16th. Coming down low on the Pac West car, Dixon.
Something to notice there as they sandwich Jimmy Vasser. Riso Gugelmin gave him the low line, maintain a middle to high line. Takagi kept his car down in that clean air. These guys really have to be careful of what they're doing. If they move across the track, they will affect everyone behind them. Some of the drivers use that to their advantage. It's a little bit dirty out on the track when you do that. You have to be very careful because you can cause a big upset to someone that's well behind you by changing lanes quickly.
You got a glimpse, too, of Bill DeFerrin. Just steadily staying in there. He's 17th. The lone hope now of the Penske team. Leo Castroneves retired. Pappas is out front.
That's
Here
how
comes
quickly.
Moreno.
That's how quickly those cars accelerate in the draft. I was talking to Michael Andretti yesterday about this new variation on the Hanford device that they have with that 3-inch extension. He said, look, when you pick up the draft, it actually snaps your head back, and the revs just continue to increase like crazy. You can't believe it. You've got to be very careful at how you time drafting up to and then around someone. Because when you hit that clean air, when you pull out, you want to make sure you haven't put a lot of steering wheel input into it, because when those front wings hook up in the clean air, it can be disastrous.
And we now have a new record for lead changes. It was 59 in 2000. It's now 60. We're only 140 laps in. Oh, this has turned out to be a wonderful race.
So those are changes at the stripe. We've seen many more lead changes than that around the track. Cristiano D'Amata making a fairly aggressive move down the inside. I was a little surprised to learn, we were talking about engines earlier, that Toyota built 2 qualifying engines for this race, for Junqueira and for Cristiano D'Amata. And Cristiano told me yesterday that he was a little surprised because at Surfers Paradise, those 2 motors went to Moreno and Dixon. The other manufacturers being a little bit more conservative with their approach, but the Toyota motors have had perfect reliability so far this weekend.
Normally the job of Russ Thompson is our statistician, passing information down to the graphics crew, Lori and the gang. 500-mile race, his primary job is just counting lead changes away from the line. Russ, are you giving up on that? No, he's still keeping at it.
He's got his fingers exposed, his shoes off, using every digit he's got to keep track of those.
Back to the front, he's held it for a couple of laps now. Roberto Moreno driving for Pat Patrick and the Patrick Racing Team. He's followed by Cristiano and Max, 2 Toyotas and a Ford out front at the 500. Coming up after us, Sports Center. Brian Kenny, Bill Pito, they'll get you up on the drama in the desert. The Packers heroics versus the Bucks. And can Tiger mount a charge? All coming up next. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Right now, though, we're making one of their headlines. Record number of lead changes in the 500 presented by Toyota. The all-time lead change record, 62 in the 1998 U.S. 500. We're there now. We're going for a record.
Oh, we're going to break it
all the
big time.
This is one they're going to write about for a very, very long time.
Very surprised to see Jimmy Vasser so far back at the very tail end of our speed shot there.
Gary Gerald, what's going on with Jimmy Vasser?
Well,
there he comes.
He just checked with the team, and he is struggling. He says the car, as far as its handling is concerned, is junk. He was afraid that the tire pressures didn't come up, but the telemetry says otherwise. They did come up. They're telling him to try to hang on until they get to the next stop, and they'll go from there and see if they can dial him back into the race. But he's got a handful right now, and he's not happy with the way the car is reacting.
And Gary, do you know if that's just since this last stop that's happened, or has it been a problem that's been deteriorating through the race?
I honestly don't know if it's been deteriorating or not. I think it's just within the last within this last set of tires.
Because sometimes what happens, you can get one tire that's not consistent with the groups that you've been running. It can throw the entire balance of the car off.
Fernandez back to the front. Scott Pruitt.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Jimmy before the race, after the warm-up and before the race. He said he was not happy at all with the setup on his race car, and they were going to go back and make some pretty big changes trying to get the setup back where he wanted. Obviously, it looks like they don't have quite what they want in the car.
So with Fernandez taking the lead, breaks the all-time number of changes in a race. We're at 63 now. Fernandez still runs on point. D'Amata right behind him. There's the graphic that gives some substance to what we just mentioned, that the all-time lead change record broken by Fernandez. Now,
It's going
Let's go.
down.
Yeah, it's going down bad. Let's go to Scott Pruitt.
Yeah, I just got done talking to Morris Nunn. We heard reports that Tony was complaining that he had lost brakes or had some sort of problem. The last time in, for the pit stop, he came in and locked the fronts. He's concerned that maybe they either have lost their rear brakes or having some sort of problem. They can make it without a problem, but he has to be very careful when he comes in to make his pit stops.
Tony Kanaan back in 5th with Barron in 6th.
With these carbon fiber brakes, just before you come in, because you don't use them as a matter of course during these runs, you start dragging the brake with your left foot as you go down the back straightaway to get some heat in these carbon fiber brakes. Otherwise, they don't work at all. They have a whole different feel than road course brakes, and as you make that transition onto the concrete from the asphalt, it's very easy to lock them. And if you have a tire that's slightly out of balance, it'll knock the pads back and the pucks, and you got to pump the brakes up in order to make those brakes work effectively.
Another round of pit stops begins. Here is Casey. Scott?
That's exactly right. We talked about him earlier. They're very happy with the setup, but they are running the car a little bit rich, which means they're putting extra fuel in the engine with the concerns of some of the engine reliability today.
We expect the leader, Adrian Fernandez, and in fact most of the pack in shortly as well.
Hey, Paul, we just
got
lost
an engine and a yellow.
Yeah, it's a Toyota, so it's not just one manufacturer.
Mauricio Gugelmin pulls off down on the apron.
And that's going to bring the flag at an ideal time. Fernandez was anticipating coming in. They will have to keep the pits closed, though, until they pack up behind the pace car. Gugelmin gets the car to safety. Safety team is right there to help him out of the cockpit.
And for the weekend, that is now engine number 14.
Our third caution of this day.
And maybe, Paul, this plays right into the hands. We were talking about Jimmy Vasser. Maybe they can come up with some magic on this stop under yellow before things really got worse for him.
Exactly right, Gary. He's dropped down to 18th, but now they can take a little longer. In fact, they can do lap after lap repairs as long as they get them out each time the field comes by.
One of the best days you can have on an oval is when the car's right and you're making just small changes from within the car to correct the balance change with tire wear and fuel load. The worst day is when you have a day like Jimmy Vasser, you need spring changes or bar changes.
This is Gidley's view. There goes the engine. Whoa!
Mosquito abatement squad has been activated at California Speedway, and that's when your heart stops for just a moment. Do you go low, do you go high, or do you just not move?
1 point. That happened to our camera also happened to his visor.
Exactly. That's why they wear, at least I used to for 500-mile races, up to 5 tear-offs. The plastic sheets that go across the front of the visor. Guarantee you, as soon as Mimo got that thing under control going through turns 1 and 2, he reached up and pulled off one of those strips. Windshield clear once again.
So we're waiting for the race leader, Adrian Fernandez. It's Fernandez, D'Amata, Moreno, Pappas, Barron, Kanaan. And we expect the pits to open up here. This will mean that the pit stops will come on the 156th lap of the leader. Jan Bikas.
And it's a huge break for Adrian Fernandez. I said to Tom Anderson, his team owner, just a minute ago, boy, that was nice and lucky. He says, well, assuming that we don't run out of fuel because we were going to pit before they closed the pit. But now, as we can see him in view, we know that that was a wonderful bonus for Adrian Fernandez. Now gets to make his stop under the yellow. They are also giving this car a little more fuel like we heard with some of the others. To give them some front wing, and they have changed the right front tire pressure. Gary?
Service for Cristiano D'Amata. Everything looking good. Once again, no aero changes whatsoever. Michael Andretti in front of him. There's Cristiano out. Oh, good pit stop for Cristiano. He may lead them all out of here.
Very, very nice for the Newman Haas team and Cristiano D'Amata. Max Pappas was rolling first of this entire group, though well up the pits. Cristiano burned it out of there, but keep an eye on Pappas.
I've had a good feeling about him all day long. Cristiano D'Amata getting great mileage, doesn't have put as much fuel in. Shorter pit stop, first out.
We mentioned Cristiano D'Amata's stop by the Newman Haas team. Carl Haas overlooking it. This is pretty much the view that Carl had. So the Australia winner is in front right now. The more interesting conversations ever. Cristiano D'Amata and his spotter. Cristiano says, I can't find the pace car. Well, it was well ahead of him. It's on the backstretch. There's Cristiano.
It's the glare.
Yeah. Now he was pointed the other way when he asked it.
Son of a gun.
And you may have noticed on that opening shot, just behind the pace car is Casey Mears. Remember, they're using more fuel. There are a couple of ways to cool a motor, with oil, with water externally, fuel internally. The more fuel you pour into the motor, the cooler it will run. He came in just before that last yellow, and it came at a terrible time for Casey Mears. All right for everyone else.
So with the sun setting, the haze climbing, D'Amata and Pappas had great stops. Servia and Takagi had even better. And Fernandez, of course, he's out of there. So the 500 presented by Toyota continues. We're guessing, given yellows, maybe 2 more pit stops before the end of the race.
Welcome.
Max Pappas was Parker's early pick to go on to victory in this thing. He has been in the fight all day, and that would overcome some very disappointing finishes for Pappas, 2 of them which left him absolutely in tears. Let's go to Scott Pruitt.
Well, there's a lot of exciting things happening down here. We were talking with the team manager, Mark Johnson. He told Max, you need to be the fuel mileage king, at least for the next couple rounds. They're looking for him to get some big mileage.
Well, we're figuring 2 stops to the finish, so those seem like they would come in neatly without a problem.
Well, if they get the yellow at the right time. Oh, there are some guesses here that maybe it can be done in 1 more stop.
That's a long, long guess.
Aerial refueling down the back straightaway. However, I don't know if the airplane will be able to find him in the haze that we have right now.
We're showing you the race recap. Now out of the race. Of course, Kenny Breck went out very early on, contact with the wall, but otherwise it has been a fairly safe race. Mechanical, only the other problems. Now it's a cleanup, a fairly extensive one on the front stretch, and when they get that done, people be making a little mileage, saving that fuel, and we're going green. We're going racing again. The 500 presented by Toyota. Still sunshine, though the sun begins to get closer and closer to the horizon. And down on the main straightaway, here's the cleanup going on. A lot of oil dropped on the track. They're doing everything they can, of course, to make sure that there is no oil when they go back to the green flag. Let's go to Jan.
Well, you know, I just had a very interesting conversation with Tom Elliott of Honda, and I said, have you told your teams to give it more fuel to save the engines? He says, no, we haven't told them that because we feel we might have a batch of bad valve springs. Now, fuel will do nothing for valve springs. The only thing that's going to keep a valve spring from breaking is lowering the revs. And he said, you know what? The engines of ours that haven't broken yet, we don't think they're going to break, because if it's a valve spring-related problem, that would have happened early. Paul?
During this yellow, too, Gary Gerald's been keeping track of the pits.
Yeah, Paul, an update on Jimmy Vassar, and we'd expressed his concerns about how the handling had gone away in the car. They found a leak in the auxiliary oil tank, and there was a little leaking oil that was getting on his rear wheels, and that's why the handling characteristics just absolutely turned to junk. Well, they pumped all of the oil out of that auxiliary back into the engine. They've changed the tires, obviously, on the pit stop. They think they've cured the problem. Now it'll be something to see if Vassar can advance from his current 15th position.
So will the yellow still out and the cleanup still going on, the field circulating, saving fuel. And from Gidley's view, there's the engine. It's gone, and there is oil everywhere. We'll be back with more from California Speedway. Back in California, 3rd place, Max Pappas. 2nd place, Roberto Moreno. And there is the current leader under yellow, Cristiano D'Amata. Parker Johnstone, most interesting radio conversation with Max Pappas.
Mark Johnson, manager there, managing director, has coached Max all year long. In fact, back at PPI with Cal Wells, he worked with Max Pappas, and he's been telling him, Max, if you're a good boy, we can do this in one more stop, but you really got to help me, Max. And Max says, Mark, what do I need to do? Can we do this in one stop? We can, but Max, you got to be really, really good. So that coaching that I talked about goes on all race long, for some drivers more than others. But Mark and Max have that conversation going now, even as we speak.
There he is, Mark.
Your board, Maxie? Put the board up, Mark. Can you do it?
Mark watches from the Ray Hall Letterman pits. Now, I want to warn you right now on this one. Because this race is going to run long and has started right now, don't start yelling yet. We're going to switch over in about 25 minutes to ESPN2 for the conclusion of the 500 presented by Toyota. So get your remotes ready. You're here at the track. Hop on your cell phones, call home, tell them to change the channel on the recorder. Jill DeFerrin comes into the pits. And everybody now, I think probably it's going to be a little bit of a top-off game as they watch the cleanup. Drivers are pretty good at judging how much more has to be done on the track. They're the best observers because they're going past that scene every lap. We'll be back. Close to a green flag now. Christian Fittipaldi just came in and topped off. The safety equipment has all left the scene. Now, there's still quite a bit of the white chalk of the oil dry still on the track, but for the most part, it has been scrubbed off.
Well, Jan and I talked about it earlier in the show. If you think you can make this in one more stop, even with a little bit of help from maybe one more yellow, wouldn't you try to dive in now before this goes green and top up?
And I think that's what Adrian Fernandez is about to do and what we saw Christian Fittipaldi just do, Parker.
Well, the great views that you've been seeing of this race are brought to us by the Monster.com Blimp Skeeter. Monster.com. Job good, life good. Now they're saying one more lap to the green flag. Tim Swintel, the starter, longtime starter of this series, took over when Nicky Finaro, who actually did the first kart race back in 1979 at Phoenix, and then Jimmy took over. Most of the cars are going to top off at the end. They've all seen that one little indicator. They don't care that much about track position at this point.
Well, I think Morris Nunn's got it right. I think Tom Anderson with Fernandez Racing has it right. And the lads at Newman Haas have got it right with Christian Fittipaldi. This could be what determines the outcome of this race.
Pretty close call between Fernandez and Kanan as they came off the pit road. Jan Beekes.
Yeah, another quick update on Honda. Just spoke with Robert Clark, and although at first they thought it was valve springs, they have bore scoped the engines that failed early in the race and found holes in the tops of the pistons. So they have now, yes, told the teams to use more fuel to make sure that doesn't cause more problems.
Wow, that's interesting too. Tearing down the engine while the race is still being run to predict what other engines will do.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that last splash and go, don't try to assume here that we mean that there won't be one more stop. What they're trying to do is make sure it's just one more stop, not two.
Green flag, Chris.
Cristiano D'Amata answers the green flag. Roberto Moreno right behind him, then Pappas.
And that smoke you saw was them going through the grease sweep. That wasn't an engine problem. And if you're Cristiano D'Amata and you're trying to make this in one more stop, or any of these guys, then you get back in line. You do not want to lead this race right now. Well, the only question we have now, depending on how the yellows play out, is it one more stop or two? We know for Fittipaldi, Kanan, and Fernandez. Kanan and Fernandez having one additional lap on Fittipaldi. They've got a big advantage right now on the end of the field.
The technology, too, as Moreno tries to work Cristiano D'Amata, has improved so dramatically. It used to be you just measured the fuel on a sight gauge on the pit tank, and that's how you knew what your fuel mileage was, just by doing subtraction and averaging every pit stop. Now the drivers actually can see what their fuel mileage is in real time.
Yeah, they've been able to do that for a while. I actually watched mine run out of fuel while I was leading at Michigan once, while I was arguing with the guys in the pits. They said, nah, you got plenty left. I said, I don't think so. And as it went to zero, it coughed. But there are fuel transducers on the cars to measure. 2.6. That's a really big number. I think you get extra. I think you get extra stamps if you make that number. But you've got the fuel transducer on the car. They also look at the flow out of the tanks themselves, and they weigh the tanks, which is probably the most accurate of all measures. They know how much a gallon of fuel weighs of the methanol, and they can tell how much they're putting in the cars, and then be able to verify what the fuel transducer is telling them from the car itself.
Moreno, then Pappas. Moreno again, Pappas again. They were 4 wide at the line last time around.
Lap 204. Everybody packed up. Everybody saving fuel. You're hitting the worst of everybody right now. Inside. You're clear.
And the difference between the front and mid-pack, 2.2 miles per gallon up to 3 miles per gallon in the middle of this tussle. You can see everybody is just looking for room to run because nobody actually wants to go forward.
Oh, 4 wide there. They're getting braver and braver.
The target, guys, for D'Amata is 2.6. So he's right in the middle of what you were talking about there, Parker.
Tony Kanaan takes the lead. 66 lead changes. 18 different leaders.
Bruno Junqueira now leading in only his second 500 miler, saying, you know, I come from Formula 3000 where I'm the champion. I don't quite understand this. Isn't the whole idea to lead a race? No, Bruno, you need to drop back. Right now he's pulling out a gap at the laps if they're running, which are almost 4 to 5 seconds off qualifying pace per lap. A guy, if he kept his foot in it, could probably get around if left to his own devices and probably lap a good number of these guys.
So the rookie, Bruno Junqueira, takes the lead of the race. We change again. We continue to set records.
And nice and smooth, nice and flat. Just leave these guys. Leave them.
That's what I was suggesting. Take the opposite tack. Just keep your foot in it and try to drive away from him. But you can hear he is now flat out all the way around the circuit.
Moreno pulled him in during 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, you'll hear the RPMs dip as he turns the wheel, creating friction between the tires and road surface. They'll start to scrub speed, and it'll drag the RPMs back down. As he comes off the corner, straightens the wheel, frees the car up, the RPMs will pick back up. Roberto Moreno starting to tuck him behind him.
Nice and smooth on the pedal. Nice and flat.
And the whole group's come with him now. That last lap, they picked up almost 4 seconds a lap from the previous lap.
Let's just listen. In and won, and then had his own problem with Tony Kanaan. Moreno in second. Junqueira is still leading. Junqueira celebrates his birthday today. He's 25. There is a report of debris on the backstretch.
Yellow for debris.
There's the 4th caution of the day. Came off one of the cars over on the backstretch.
Off the back of Moreno's car there. Carbon fiber panel bouncing down the track. And for Fittipaldi, for Kanaan, for Fernandez, this is exactly what they needed. Now everyone's going to have to do one more stop. They'll have to come into the pits one last time.
There's a safety team. It's over in turn 3. You saw it come off on the approach to turn 3. Pick it up. That can wreak havoc on tires, though. It's very sharp.
Stay off the radio for just a second.
Decide to come in now. It's going to be a very quick yellow. What would would you do, Parker? I'd come in and top it.
Absolutely. I'd wait till, I mean, this is going to be a very quick turnaround, so you have to be careful here. But even if you lose track position and drop to the back of the pack, it's meaningless because it only takes a few laps to work yourself back to the front. Fuel is everything.
Now we begin to see guys
everything's cool.
come over the wall.
When the pits open up, when I call you in, we're going to come in and pit. Okay, buddy?
That's what I do, Mark.
Martin, when everybody's going so slow, if I catch them by surprise, I kick their ass big time. I know, buddy. I know. That's what I say. You got to be the man from here to the end. You got to use everything you've got.
Excellent command of the English language, I think.
Well, you can see that Max's crew is out there. Both of the target teams are over the wall. Many other teams now beginning to set tires over the wall and prepare their fuel rigs.
We're just waiting for the pits to open now before they dive in. The safety truck now pulling down off the track. We'll take this opportunity to do a complete track inspection.
It is not going to be a long caution. You're going to have to probably go now. Pace cars over in turn 3 right now. The safety team has already left that area. They go back to station. They're just going to take a quick look at the rest of the racetrack. Make sure there's nothing out there that any of the observers missed, though it's not likely. Slowly between 3 and 4.
Have a number of teams now laid out for changes. And it looks like which is kind of interesting that they've held the pits closed for another lap. It's funny, Paul, we talk about the $1 million on the line today. Drivers' Championship having been decided last week. You know, you look at this community, these faces of the crews up and down. Don Halliday there, Bobby Rahal. But it's the people back in hospitality, the manufacturers, the PR members, the crews, the engineers, all these team managers, the kart safety and medical workers, the SCCA workers that we've mentioned so frequently.
Able to go maybe 10, 11 laps more than us, but I think staying out's the right thing to do. Some of the people at the back have had a little trouble moving back up through the field.
So a split in strategy there.
Yeah, boy.
But even our crew of 100, who all work behind the scenes, they'll never be on top of the podium. They'll never share that $1 million. They'll never spray the champagne. And those guys make these great sacrifices because of their passion for this great sport.
Down.
Earlier, you heard the conversation with Pappas. That last conversation was with Cristiano D'Amata. That's the split strategy. Now, race control is just notifying the teams that because of the light and the glare on the backstretch, going to short the race. It's going to go to 230 laps, 20 less than scheduled.
Well, that's 52 laps from now.
Guys, you should have seen the head snap when that word came over the radio down here in D'Amata's pit. We're still waiting to see. Now, they're getting ready to go over the wall. At least they have the fueling rig over the wall.
All the data acquisition guys, all the team managers just went, what? Because they had their strategy all planned out for 250 laps.
When the pits open, we'll come in, Chris, for fuel and tires.
Now we got to change.
Shorten the race.
There's the reason why. As the
How
sun's
many laps? The race distance will be 230 laps, Chris. 230. Pits
Because by 5 o'clock
are open. Pit.
By
You mean 230? Pit. Pit for fuel only. Pit for fuel only, Chris.
And I'm surprised they're not going to put tires on, because normally you would want to gain track position.
It's going to be fuel and tires. Fuel and tires. Watch your speed.
That puff of smoke ahead, that was Moreno. To Toyota, they do that under low speeds. Nothing's wrong with the engine. At least we hope not.
The internals of these engines are run very loose to reduce internal friction. And when they slow down like this and first put the throttle on, they collect a lot of oil in the combustion chambers, and it just blows out the exhaust. But there's no reason not to go for tires here, because no matter how far you drop back, you can make that up very, very quickly.
Okay. Slow down.
Junqueira first to hit the pits. Only guy to stay out is Michel Jourdain Jr.
And Paul, down here with Max Pappas, they are going with a scrubbed set of tires on his car. Didn't take on much fuel. They're going to add a little bit of front weight.
Watching Cristiano de Mata and his crew, you heard the discussion, fuel and tires, the final decision. A lot of cars going on, even though he was under 10 seconds.
And Roberto Moreno leads him off of the pit road. Fernandez, they only topped the tank. You saw the other critical stops. Jourdain Jr. stayed out, picks up the lead of the race. He and Dixon are the only two of the group on the track that haven't led to this point. Now you add Fernandez in the lead for Dixon. We'll be back.
Obviously, they've shortened to 20 laps. If there's no more yellows, I think everybody can make it to the end, but it's going to be it's not going to be what we wanted it to be. It's everybody's going to have to be pretty careful to get there.
What kind of number are we talking to make it without a stop?
We're going to need about 2.9.
Ooh, that's a big number, guys. That's not in the front. That's in the draft.
Yeah, and that's the same number we're hearing from the de Mata camp, 2.9.
And the problem is you can run that in the middle, but at some point you've got to get to the front.
And we do want to remind you once again, very shortly here, coming up on about a minute before the hour, we're going to shift our coverage over to ESPN2 because SportsCenter coming up next here. So be ready to change with us as we run to the conclusion of what is now the 460 presented. That might have been presented by Toyota. Pace picks up. Pace car is off. Green flag is already out. You can barely pick him out of the haze there. Moreno leads him to the line, but Junqueira comes past Moreno.
That's a big question mark. You just want to lay in the back of this, make sure that you don't lose contact with the leaders. I mean, the strategy is the same. It's so hard for drivers, though, once they pull the visor down and the lights go out, the red haze starts.
And the brain goes.
Yeah, that was all part of the light goes out. Is that you got to lay back. You have to wait. You got to make the numbers here.
Look who's up there in third place now. It's Tagliani once again, the pole sitter. Been absent from the scene at the front for some considerable time.
Well, he's looking for that first kart win. I figure after that dramatic problem that he had at Vancouver when he was so strong that he's owed about 3 wins.
Bruno, I don't know if map switch 5 might be a little too much. That might be a little too much.
And I'm sure it is.
Oh.
It's so easy to do it from up here, though. Oh, listen, he's completely backed out of the throttle now going through the corner. Cristiano de Mata trying to make that number at 2.9.
Anybody else, please lead this thing.
And that's what happens. One of the problems that you get when people are backed off and you're running so close is that the methanol itself doesn't dissipate as quickly because you're not cutting through the air as fast. It burbles up in this turbulence, and it can almost get to the point where you can't breathe. Your eyes start to tear. That's toxic stuff, and it can be very difficult just trying to remain focused and concentrate.
Fernandez and Tagliani come forward. Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, we're already hearing from some of these teams that they're concerned. Obviously, we know nobody wants to lead. Everybody needs to conserve fuel. The target number seems to be 2.8 to 2.9, but we're already hearing some teams saying it looks like we may be able to get only to lap 227, maybe 228. And the distance is 230.
The guy to keep your eye on here is Oriol Servia. He has been the mileage king all day long, going laps farther than anybody else. So right now, Oriol, there you see him. Last time across the strip was in 6th place. But this young driver from Catalonia has been getting great mileage all day long.
He's racing now with Tag. Carpentier takes the lead away from Moreno. Amazing.
And that speed graphic said everything. Quick lap 220, last lap 203.
Still there. Okay, you're clear.
Spotters from high atop atop the grandstand here at California Speedway. Car doesn't use spotters all that much, but they certainly do on the super speedways. It's Carpentier. And another engine looks like it's going. Yellow comes out. Roberto Moreno. And his engine lets go. Roberto Moreno with an engine lets go. Coming up next on ESPN is Sports Center. We're switching over to ESPN2. If you're just joining us on ESPN2, it's been a great race. The 500 presented by Toyota. We're moving down to a finish, a shortened finish at that of 230 laps. They'd scheduled 250. Moreno as his engine let go here in the closing moments of the 500 presented by Toyota. We expect it to be an incredible finish. Off for the last time this season, no doubt wondering what he may be doing next year. He has not yet announced where he will be driving in the 2002 season.
And there are a number of drivers that still have questionable futures in the series, all very deserving. All should have a ride, but when the music stops, they may not have a seat. We talked about Moreno, also Mears, Barron, Gidley, Junqueira, Jourdain, Pappas, and Herta.
It's been a fascinating day at the 500 presented by Toyota. Started out with rain. That delayed the morning warm-up to the afternoon. The race got started a little bit late, and as a result, it's running very late now, running into the California sunset. And that caused the officials to give it some real thought and decide they needed to shorten the race distance, which they have done. There are now 41 laps left. We have had a record number of lead changes, 70 different lead changes among 19 different drivers. The race focus kind of remains on Max Pappas, who has led the most laps with 52 and led 19 different times. I'm Paul Page. Parker Johnstone is here with me in the booth. Gary Gerald and Jan Bikus are down on pit road on a, what they used to say in the movies, as the sun sets in the west.
And the strategy of this race has now changed once again. You're going to come in, you're going to top up, and fortunately we'll see some racing with a lot more throttle action than we've seen in the past.
The more fuel they have, the greater horsepower they can make, the more fuel that they have in the car. So it's not a matter of not having enough fuel, it's a matter of having more than enough to make more horsepower, make more speed.
Yeah, I want to see them run flat out. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see a race where no one wants to take the lead. I think we're going to see a little bit of that on this restart, but in the closing laps, we're going to see who has it and who doesn't.
Topping off continues. I'm surprised at how many actually stayed out.
Yeah, you've got it. You have to come in and top up. I don't think there's a choice. Maybe they're just trying to do this at the last possible moment. Trying to get that last lap or two.
There's still plenty of work being done up in turn 4 of the track as you look over the shoulder, the helmet of Bruno Junqueira. Still plenty of work being done, so I would think that was a little premature to come in and top off. We'll be back. Championship Series 500 milers tend to create interesting and unusual results. All these guys went in. Fittipaldi a year ago here. Bruno Junqueira, a rookie, sitting at the front of the field. Right behind him is Oriol Servia, who's never won a race. Junqueira's only won once, and that was on Road America road circuit.
This season, we've tied the record for the most different drivers atop the podium at 11. We're looking for number 12. We've had 19 different drivers on the podium during the course of the season. Everyone, as I said earlier, has led a lap except for Shinji Nakano. Most competitive season ever in kart history.
And in this race, most competitive ever in terms of lead changes. 71 different changes, 19 different leaders. The game's going to come down to the closing laps. It certainly always does, but because of the fuel strategy that is at play here. You want to get more fuel in so you can go to the finish and have plenty of horsepower and speed right at the end. Let's go to Jan Bikus.
Well, back with Mark Johnson. And Mark, what's the number now? Now can you just turn it up and go?
We can't make it all the way full rich yet, but we're not too far from it. We're going to be, I think we'll be pretty good. It's going to be a shootout, Jan. You know how these things are at the end. it's going to be tough. The last 15 or 20 laps will be tough. We just want to be there to make sure we're a part of it.
Now you're coaching him. I assume what you do is you save fuel until you can go full rich to the end. So you save everything for the end, so you have all the power that's necessary.
Correct. We're going to we'll save a little bit in the beginning here so we can run the last 20 hard.
All right, should be a great finish. Thank you, Mark.
Jan Vikas, and perhaps Scott Pruitt, you can answer this for me. Max Papp is currently sitting 12th. It's still a long cleanup. Wouldn't you bring him in one more time and top it?
No way. All I do is leave him out there right now. Just be real careful on fuel. And then when you go green, he's already in the middle of the pack. Just play it cautious for a few laps. Take care of it. Work on the fuel mileage. Work to a point where you know you can go full rich or close to it till the end. And then just go get him.
Yeah, the game's up at that point. I guess the question is, if you can, do you want to find out how far you can push early or try to break away with some other cars? So some drivers will drop off here at the end and top up. Others will stay out on the track. Track position right now means nothing because it will change the moment the green flag comes out.
Christian Fittipaldi's going to come in and top off. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, last week down at Surfers Paradise, it was a gearbox problem when he looked like he was so much in control. Now you have the motor go away. How tough is it to try to stomach this, even though I know there's nothing you can do about it?
Well, I've been racing for so long. I know how things are. It's very disappointing for us because we wanted to finish the year with a golden key. It would be to win this race. A lot of people talk that I don't go well in the ovals, and I think I proved them all wrong now. If I have a good car, I can always go well. And my team, the Vision team, gave me a great car here. I was just saving fuel out there. I could have just checked it out, but I didn't need to do that yet. And all I wanted was always a car in front of me, and I always did that. And that way I could save lots of fuel. And I was driving half a throttle down the straight behind those cars. And the car was fantastic in the corners. So I had a great car. The Vision crew, hats off to them. Unfortunately, not meant to be. We're going to take the bags empty home, unfortunately. But I was going to have to share that with Uncle Sam and Patrick and Pat Patrick. So it wasn't going to be much left for me anyhow. So might as well take them empty.
He takes a smile away instead. Thanks, Roberto.
Thanks.
Oh, wow. That's how they divvy it up.
What do you think? Was the car any good?
I guess. I don't know about his percentage of the purse.
Still cleaning up. Well, just coming to the finish of the cleanup up there in turn 4. The cars that pitted, lap 190. I don't agree with Scott, man. I'd be stopping the car again if I had a chance.
I want everything I've got for as long as I have it. But it's the old game on the 500 miles. You conserve the car to get to the end, to sprint to the finish. And really, the guy that's got the car the best trimmed, that can still run in traffic, to make that last lap pass is the team and the driver that will take home $1 million at the end of the day.
Pace car entering turn 3 over there. Their flashing lights are still on it, which of course indicates at least one more lap to go. Safety team truck passing down the front straightaway right now. Going to station, we anticipate probably one more lap indicated as they come to the line. We'll watch for that signal. Yep, that's what they say. One more to go, and we'll be back racing when we come back.
One finger right now. One finger.
With no yellows, which is likely, if certainly possible. Oh.
No problem.
Get everybody back from the wall.
Restart. Spread them out, okay? You understand? You're the guy in control.
Well, before we get to the sprint, I wanted to thank you, Paul, and Gary and Jan for being the voices of kart for so long and the defenders of open wheel racing. And to all of our crew, which number 100, which have almost 100 Emmys, thanks for being the best in the business and being the rookie on the staff and listening to you guys as I raced. I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Yeah, we may let you take those rookie stripes off at the end of this race. Now, it has been a good run. Great team, best racing team I've ever been with. Ready to go back to the green flag. Thank you.
That goes from the pit guys too, Paul.
I just know it's going to happen here, guys. It's going to go green. And being the race fans that we are, there's going to be a lot of screaming and yelling. They're going to let the dogs out. We're going to get back to our whoa, 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 whoa.
June Cara picks up the pace.
Whoa!
And
there's the first whoa.
Yellow.
Adrian Fernandez with contact down on the inside. This will make the yellow game even better for those on the track. A disappointing way for Adrian Fernandez to close out his 2001 season.
team's looking at it, and what they want to see is what happened there. We want to show that to you as well. As they came back to green, here's Fernandez. Look way up. Explain that.
Normally, these cars turn left unless they have help. So if you're spinning the tires, pulling the engine up, coming up to power, that's what normally happens, except we've seen so many abnormal things happen during the course of this year.
Well, on the radio, Fernandez said that he just put the power down. Now, show Pappas up here, though. Keep that in mind.
Watch back here at the back of this line as they come in. There, all by himself, gets on the power, and the car turns right. Very unusual. These cars are built to turn left. A lot of these cars...
Look at a close call for Pappas, though.
As he crosses back, and Max Pappas, who's had enough bad luck for long enough. I mean, it takes the simplest thing. You can do everything right. Your crew can do everything right, but yet somebody else can take you out in just a moment's notice.
Tom Anderson, John Ward. Tom's one of the owners on the team, manages the team. John Ward, chief engineer for Adrian Fernandez.
Don Halliday coming to that team next year as a part-team owner from Kenny Breck, Team Rahal. And this is, as I said, as Adrian went off, this changes the game once again. As they extend this yellow, everybody will be good to go to the end. And now, the amount of throttle they can use will be a lot more for a lot longer. Watch them turn left here on throttle. Very unusual. Pretty much you get to these corners and they just turn left. For a lot of the cars, you have to turn them right going down the straightaways to hold them straight.
Adrian almost looks mystified by it himself. He knows when and how it happened. I'm entirely sure that he knows why. The good news, if there is, in an accident, is that there's no oil on the track. It wasn't the result of a burst oil line or something. So it should be a fairly rapid cleanup. But Parker, look at this sun. Do you think with it slowing even further, that they might consider shortening it even further?
And this is where Adrian had his problem, was right in this area. It's almost 4:15 Pacific now, local time, and by 5 o'clock, it's dark here. So I don't know if that was a consideration. It's just so strange to see on-power spinning tires with these cars going right. Scott, have you ever seen anything like that?
Scott's on his break right now, too.
How about you, Jan?
Unfortunately, down here, you guys are breaking up pretty good on my backpack. I didn't quite get what you said. I was down here talking to the Rahal guys, talking to my old engineer. And John said, you know what, we can go 100% to the end, guys, so it's going to be a great fight to the checkered flag.
Well, Scott, what I was asking is, very surprised to see Adrian spin the tires and the car go right.
We want to show you Cristiano D'Amata, and just listen to this.
Okay, well, that gives some insight. You notice the car first moved left. So if it did, and Adrian was unable to get the correction for that first step to the left out, then the car would have snapped back to the right.
Hey,
we
Parker,
just didn't see that first indication to the left before it turned right.
Parker, the reason I didn't answer earlier is because I did that once. And, they can turn right.
Of all the things I've done, that's not one of them. So I think I'll stop while I'm ahead. But I think what he may have had is just a little bobble to the left, put some correction. And remember, the steering in these cars for the ovals is much slower than you find on the road courses, because you don't want a lot of change from the front wheels.
You just see the change to 220. They just shortened the race another 10. It just came up.
But what happens, the drivers put a lot of steering in, and they don't get the response they normally would on a road course, because you don't want a lot of steering change for input on these big sweeping corners. Well, that blows all the strategy completely out the window.
Everybody's going to the finish.
Everybody's got a lot of fuel. They're going full throttle.
It is now 220 is going to be the lap. They just shortened it. We can go full rich till the end. Do you copy? Full rich to the end.
Hey, guys, I got an idea. Let's just make it a 200-lap race, make it a 2-lap shootout here, and see what happens.
21 laps to go. We can run map switch number 1, okay? Get some heat in the thing this time. Make sure you got plenty of heat in it. We're going to run map switch number 1.
Finally, we know what the full rich map setting is.
Ford Chip Ganassi for that car today. Of course, they can switch it A lot of the cars, that's the full lean pace car lap.
Go to 1 right now. You can go to 1 right now. You got some fuel to burn. You can go to 1 right now.
Position, but for them, obviously, today, that's full rich. So great. I'm going to get what I wish for.
Should they care, the pits are open. Jan Beekes is down in Bobby Rahal's pit.
Yes, with Bobby Rahal himself, and I'd have to say that you must have a lot of confidence knowing now it's pedal to the metal, full rich, because Max seems like he's got a rocket ship.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's early in the race. We told him to drop back, and then he didn't like it back. We said, okay, go to the front, and boom, 2 laps later he was there. So he can run fast. The car's been good all weekend. We just got to get a good restart and stand on it.
Now, any concern about the fact that you're not right at the front, that you are sort of mid-pack?
No, with the draft and what have you, the guy who's leading this thing's going to be about 12th at the first lap.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
Gary?
Well, Roger Penske's here with a smile on his face. What does this do now by shortening another 10 laps, and how much does it help you?
We made the decision to stay out anyhow, figuring it was 230 laps. So everybody's going to be able to go wide open here. It's going to be a real race to the end for a lot of cars.
How much has Gilles been holding back, waiting for these last 20 laps or so?
Well, what we're trying to do is be there at the end, keep the engine under us, and not make a mistake. So we'll see what happens.
Another $2 million kitty here over 2 weekends for this team could be in the offing.
Now, speaking of the $1 million, they're averaging everything up. At 500 miles, $1 million is $2,000 per mile. And then when they shortened it to 460, it went up to $2,174 per mile. And now at 440 miles, $2,273 every half lap.
That sounds like something I would have done. I can't believe you did that.
I didn't do it. I got it from somebody else.
Okay, well now
I can't do that kind of
I'll be able to sleep tonight. So, full throttle. We get to see all the cards right away here. You don't want to go all the way to the front, but you want to make sure you're in that group of lead cars. And then it's not the position going into turn 1 or turn 2 or into turn 3. Where do you want to be coming off the last corner, turn number 4?
1 lap now till the green flag. Bruno Junqueira.
Pace car go. Let the pace car go.
With probably the greatest challenge of his young career. Great champion in his own right. 1 victory in the series. Now with the awesome responsibility of sitting at the front of the field. A 500-miler in what is obviously going to be a sprint to the finish.
Slow them down and then take off.
You just have to be careful when you do that. Remember, we saw Paul Tracy in '98 leading this field for the last sprint to the finish, $1 million in his hands, and spun coming off the turn number 2 going down the back straightaway.
Behind Junqueira, Servia, D'Amata, Tagliani, Ferrin. Green flag comes out.
Green. Good job.
Servia comes down low. Servia takes the lead. D'Amata goes with him.
Former teammates, Calwell's PPI. No more Mr. Nice Guy now. You won't see him holding lines. They'll start taking air off each other's cars. It is $1 million prize to the winner.
D'Amata goes for the lead. Takes it.
One on your inside. Still there. He's still there. Hold your line. You're clear. That's it. Tuck in behind him now. Stay with him. Go low. Go high. Stay behind him. Stay behind Carpentier.
A lot of drivers with a lot to prove. Servia, Tagliani, Junqueira, Mears, Dixon, all the way down this list. Guys that want to come off this.
Stay with the fast car. If he goes, you go.
You want to come off of here with a victory. You're only as good as your last race. There's no better way to secure a career and have a great offseason.
The blue car is Tagliani. That's Servia down to the left.
Still there. Hold your line.
That's a Ferrin coming on the inside. Ferrin to 3rd.
For the moment. His teammate went with the Renard, and he's in the Pinard, Orensky. He's been very quiet all day long.
Tuck up behind DeFerrin now. Slide up behind him. Get a pop on him. You got to pop him. Don't stay out there. Stay behind him. Now pop him.
He's pulling out too soon. What they're saying is you've got to get, ooh, he drives him right down to the apron. You've got to hold that draft till the last moment.
Good job, good job, good job. There.
And then pop out of the draft. The car's faster up high. We can start measuring who's got what where. Junqueira faster mid-corner, DeFerrin quicker coming off low on the corner. You've got to start figuring out what action here will result in you being first across the line.
Now just stay high, pop him off a 2. Pop him down the back straightaway. Stay with him, pop him going into 3.
Max Pappas and Casey Mears just got around Servia for 5th and 6th.
Here comes Max. There goes Max.
Okay, outside, baby, outside. You're clear.
He's got a...
Go to the front now. Let's go, baby.
Max has got a car. He doesn't need anybody. I think he can just drive around all these guys.
Believe me, he was on his way. He was nearly a half second faster on that last lap.
I think all the emotion of Max Pappas is going to be channeled into willing this Team Rahal Lola Miller car to the front of this field. He's got the draft of DeFerrin now.
Okay, inside, you're clear. You got it, babe.
Pappas to 3rd. Junqueira moves on to DeFerrin. He gets DeFerrin. Max Pappas now making his move for the front. Around Tagliani for 2nd. Not yet.
You're clear.
Tag's got a very strong car. Qualified on the pole, but look at Max Pappas.
Outside.
Yeah, baby.
Go there. Outside. You're clear. 10 to go, baby. 10 to go. 1 more to go. 10 laps to go. 10 to go.
Dixon was very fast last lap around. He's running 5th now.
Better than everybody and run away from him.
Let's do a little supposing here. Max Pappas wins this race, 3 races on the year, and may not have a ride.
Strange but true. Might make a deal
times.
in winner's circle. Say, Bobby, look, I got a contract. You're in a cockpit.
But right now, he's got his sights set on the Lola of Cristiano D'Amata. Tag now, dropping in behind Max.
Well, and D'Amata's tough. I mean, this is going to be one of the hardest things Max will ever have had to do if he wants to come up and really get around D'Amata. D'Amata's going to fight it.
He's fearless. He's very smart. And in Indy Lights, he's learned how to play this game with very large groups of cars all running in a pack. But Max Pappas has got so much heart, so much desire.
8 laps to go, Max. We need to be in front if you can be there. Let's go, baby.
There's the toe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Suspension unsettled a little bit as he came around. Max kept it under him.
You notice what he did, though. He came back across the front of Cristiano D'Amata, trying to take some air off the car, but now he's got to figure out how to break this draft. Tagliani not waiting.
Tagliani tries to move on D'Amata. Remember, too, you can control, to some degree, the car in front of you when running in this much of a draft.
L7, Chris, L7.
You get up on the inside, you're going to lift the back end up. Car's going to step out, make it hard to drive for the guy in front of you. D'Amata back to the lead. Tagliani to 3rd.
You don't have to see the car. You can feel it. As you said, it picks up the whole back of the car, and you know they're there. Now the game begins. Who's got what where? Where do you want to be? How do I position my car? Is this guy giving me everything that he's got, or is he holding just a little bit in reserve?
You know the players. You're listening to the radios. We're going to watch with you. Oh.
You got guys coming behind. Can't let him get caught up with us. See what you can do. More to go, Max. More to go. And he's looking outside. You're clear.
Tagliani at third. Hungry. He hasn't yet won.
I knew Tag would be strong. Cristiano D'Amata surprising me just a little bit. That Lola Toyota, very strong. Here comes the Lola Ford.
Oh. Yellow.
Yellow, Chris.
And who crossed the line first on that last lap? Cristiano D'Amata, right at the line. Dixon down on the inside.
D'Amata had it at the line. Dixon catches the wall.
And the reason I asked that, they will not, I don't think, be able to get this cleaned up in 3.5 laps, which would give the $1 million in the victory to Cristiano D'Amata.
Well, and you saw that reaction out of Ray Hall, Scott Remke and his team.
Split to pit entrance.
They saw it at the line. There it is, coming to the line. Now remember, it's the second line here. It's the furthest line down.
That was so close.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. You got to use the computer.
I looked, and as they went by, saw the yellow, and then looked back at the scoring monitor, and it was just by inches that Cristiano D'Amata got to that final stripe where the timing line is.
Report initially from the scene, Scott Dixon is okay. It will take a little bit of time, and I think, Parker, you're absolutely right. This race will finish under yellow.
It's the last line right there, the transponder line.
Yeah, he had it.
And like I said, things beyond your control. If only they would have known.
Look at Bobby Rahal as he turned to take a look at the line. Oh.
This team that has dominated pole position, laps led, front row positions. Great drive, though, from Max Pappas, Cristiano D'Amata, in the right place at the right time with a very strong effort from Newman Haas Racing. Cristiano D'Amata, bookends. Wins the first race, wins the last race.
P1, L2.
And, of course, he won at Australia. And the radio call just goes out to Cristiano D'Amata. You are P1. You're the leader. 2 to go.
Well, he gets
there. Here comes Scott Dixon coming up out of the car. We want to show you what happened to him.
There's never anything as a small hit on a super speedway. Coming off turn 4, the back end just steps out hard on the binders. Such a difficult decision. Do you stay on the throttle to try to spin it down to the inside or take it high into the wall?
So it looks like Cristiano D'Amata is going to go on to this win. No question about that. Max Pappas did everything he could. They all drove a great race. We'll be back for the checkered flag. The laps of the race, knowing full well that you're going to win it and take the checkered flag. This is what really mattered. Cristiano D'Amata by a whisker beats Max Pappas to the line as the yellow comes out. And his crew also knew down in the Newman Haas pits that Cristiano had done it. And they also clearly understood the race would finish under yellow. Max Pappas going to make sure he's in second. Checkered flag flies just ahead for Cristiano D'Amata, his 4th career win. The great little guy has done it. 3rd win this season, as Parker said.
Congratulations, Chris. Congratulations. Thanks a lot, everybody. We did a great job. We fought this one all the way to the end.
As Parker said, bookends.
Great job. Thank you.
First race, last race. The season is now over. Let's go down to Jan Beekes.
with Bobby Rahal. Bobby, I know when something like this happens, it's disappointing, but you got to say this one was totally out of your control.
Well, I think we need to look at the photo. It's a little difficult to tell from that angle, but yeah, it's unfortunate if it is that way. You know, to have it decided by the yellow is not the way you want it to end. I thought we had a good chance to win the race. Obviously, Max and Cristiano were strong. Yeah, things happen like this, I guess.
Do you agree with the decision to continue to shorten the race on short notice because of light?
Well, look around. It's pretty dark.
Sorry, Bobby. Hope for better next year.
That's racing.
Yeah, a couple of points I think need to be made here. One is that television cameras are pretty good with light, and it makes it look a little lighter than it is when you look out the window. And as you look at that finish, I think you can resolve it visually. I don't think you have to go to the photo, but even at that, the transponders that they carry, all in identical positions on the car, they learned that lesson years ago, are very good at resolving the finish by themselves.
Cristiano D'Amata by a nose, his 4th career win, 3rd win this season, 2nd in a row for Newman Haas Racing here at Fontana. It's the first time since 1989 the same driver has won the first and the last race. The name of the last driver? Rick Mears.
So Cristiano D'Amata pulls to a stop. The Kart FedEx Championship Series season is over, and now Gary Gerould is ready for a final word with Cristiano D'Amata.
After a long afternoon, a lot of uncertainty about the exact distance of the race, here's the man who magically caps off his season with $1 million prize, and he'll be rewarded with the trophy and the money and one thing or another. And as we wait to get the helmet off, we'll get a word from Cristiano on that amazing finish in the race to the yellow. You can see the eyes gleaming and sparkling underneath there. The experience, but as you say, one never knows coming down. Cristiano, he's hurrying to get that helmet loose. We're almost out of time in here, Cristiano. Heiner Broman, who is back at the racetrack, has got this magnificent Marlboro 500 trophy just off to Cristiano's side, getting the helmet disengaged from the radio and the Hans device off. Cristiano, $1 million coming your way, but I want to know about what it was like when you were trading the lead with Max Pappison. Did you know that you had the advantage?
I knew I crossed the line ahead of him. I knew it was close, but I knew I was ahead. I just didn't know that yellow was coming that lap. I thought it was going to be a bigger battle, you know, at the end, but that's awesome. That's great.
Where did you want to be if it had gone the full laps? Where did you want to be on the last lap?
Well, I almost had enough speed so I could break away from everybody. Just barely. Max was able to put a couple of runs on me, so I'm happy I'm not going to have to answer this question now.
Put $1 million in this kid's pocket, guys. What a way to end the season after he started it with a victory in Mexico. Jan?
A lot of tears down here in Team Rahal, certainly for Max Papis. We talk about the agony of defeat, and Max, I know that it all comes down to timing, and you didn't know the caution was going to come out. Did you feel as though you had the strongest car if it had gone the distance?
First of all, congratulations to Cristiano. You know, he did a beautiful job. It was very strong all race long. You know, definitely the Miller car was the car to beat today, and Face was not with me, but I'm going to try again in the future.
All right, Max, you gave it a great run. Paul?
So congratulations to Cristiano D'Amata, the race winner. We're going to show you the final points of the season. Michael Andretti locked up that 3rd place in the overall point standings.
Thanks once again to everyone in the kart community that we love so dearly, to our great crew, and especially to the fans. Thanks for all of your support during this long time and for your understanding. Thank you, everyone.
So Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerould, Jan Bikas, I'm Paul Page. It's been a great ride. What a terrific season this, in fact, has been. There's going to be a lot of celebrating going on tonight. Now, kart has many challenges and exciting challenges coming up in the future. New venues, different changes within their teams and their engines, a new broadcast partner. I think I speak for all of us when I wish them the absolute best of luck in the future. Our final Toyota Spotlight takes a look back at an incredible day. We're underway with the 2001 kart season. Oh!
It's been an incredible season. This has been a presentation of ESPN.